Thank y'all for moving. We call to order the business, the meeting to order downstairs, and we'll reconvene now. Do we have any announcements? Thank y'all for coming, by the way.
Mr. Chairman, just if I could, under announcements, we need to make a quick adjustment to the front end of the agenda here. We have Miss Christy Salmon. She's the state director for the GO-Rail system in North Carolina. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that. She's traveled all the way from Atlanta, so we would like to acknowledge that and move her to agenda item number 5B.
Good deal. Any other announcements, Gary? I'm saying. Good deal. All right, we'll all stand for a moment of silence. And then I'll ask Mr. Shields to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. There's no public hearings tonight, so we'll move to 5B. Christie? Tap that, make sure it works. I just met Christy Samley, so apologize for calling you by your first name.
No worries. I appreciate you having me here tonight. As I mentioned, I'm Christy Salmon with GO-Rail. GO-Rail is a nonprofit group, and we advocate for freight rail throughout the U.S. So this week I've been in the Asheville area. We'll be here till Friday, meeting with elected officials and chambers and economic development folks, and just letting them know what's going on with freight rail at the federal level. So I cover the Southeast. Obviously, North Carolina is one of my states, since I'm here this week. We are working in conjunction with the Association of American Railroads. They're a large trade organization on Capitol Hill. So they work to lobby and meet with the representatives in DC, and then what we do is meet with local officials like you all and just educate you on what's going on with freight rail. We're always looking to make sure that nothing is going to come to, well, let me back up. Freight rail is privately held. You all may know that freight rail has been privately held for over 40 years. So that's constantly what we're doing, is to look to make sure that it stays that way. So, you know, at different levels, state level or certainly at federal level, there's always some sort of regulations, or folks come up with the idea that, hey, maybe we should have the government get in the business of regulating the freight rail. So we try to keep a watch on that, and so balanced regulation is really the main thing that we're looking for. And that's what we work with our partners to do. If there are regulations, Surface Transportation Board is in charge of looking at things that deal with freight rail, with rates, between shippers and with railroads. And so sometimes there are regulations there that we're watching. There are a couple right now that we're taking a look at that have just been kind of sitting there for a while. Their docket's backed up. So we're watching a couple of things at the Surface Transportation Board level. I'm sure that most of you all were watching the rail strike that was just averted a few months ago. We were heavily involved with that. So what we do is have our partners reach out to their congressmen, write letters, you know, sign on to op-eds, things like that, that would influence legislation or regulations that would protect the industry. So while I'm here, I just wanted to let y'all know, you know, about GO-Rail and what we do. Another thing that would be of particular interest to you all are some rail grants that are available through their infrastructure bill. There's a lot of money out there for improved crossings and for other projects, pedestrian bridges, things like that. So I'll get you all some specific information about those grants that are available. And if you have projects that you want to work on, or you already know in your mind now, we want to go for a grant, then I can help kind of walk you through that process. I can put you in touch with, I can figure out which one of the grants, there's several grants that are out there, so one may be, you know, more beneficial to whatever project that you're working on. So we really want to try to get that message out, because we want people to know that money's there. there's a lot of money in the infrastructure bill, not only for highways, but also for freight rail improvements, so we want people to be able to use that. So I'll get that stuff to you guys via email, so you'll have that information, and my contact information will be there as well. So anyway, thank you for having me. I appreciate you letting me go first. Thank you so much. Any questions that you all have?
Have you hadn't met our EDC, economic development?
Not yet. Mm-mm.
Are you in line to meet with Tony?
No, I think we're gonna talk over the phone though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christie. Public comment period. Right now, it looks like we got about 15 or 20. I don't remember, these pages aren't numbered. So I guess, public comment. In our procedural rules, generally we try to limit the public comment period to 5 minutes per speaker, and try to limit the total thing to 45 minutes. We never get either one of those things accomplished. But if we've got 20 people speaking, that could get very extensive. So a lot of you've mentioned here the subject, a lot of them are the same things. If someone gets up and just takes your speech away from you, just maybe let them have the floor for that. But anyway, we'll get started. Let me find out which page is first here. Susan Carpenter. Nana Haley?
I made 7 copies. I'm here to speak about the library situation in Nantahala. In the Fontana Regional Library, every library has their own community room. And Nantahala has, right now, a community room. But Franklin, Crescent City, Silva has a beautiful one. Cashiers Highland, everyone in Nantahala has a community room. Okay. So in Nantahala, we use the community room. We have several classes, not going at the same time whatsoever. We have pen and ink that was done this morning by Linda McCowan, acrylic painting, oil painting. I do basket making. We have yoga classes, jewelry making, metal crafting, bracelets and such, bread making, soap making, which I've done for a demo every once in a while. Let's see, movies for the kids in the summertime. And Wednesday, which is tomorrow, we have a potluck in which we just bring whatever we want, into the community room and talk about Nantahala, talk about old times, whatever. And this frequently has people, old elderly people, the daughters might bring them in, if they're well, of course, and bring them in, and they can enjoy a lunch with some friends and people that they know. We also have some lectures on occasion, wild animals, a possum on a leash going through Kestrel, really interesting talks for sure. And let's see, what else we get? A history of the area too. Pardon? So the new library has one central room, and it might be, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it whatsoever, but it might be from where I stand, this much, and probably not even that. We do not have access to the second half of the building at all. You can't give a class in basket making for me in that small of a room. I need at least 6 big tables, the size bigger than your tables that you have right there, because if I have 6 students, I need 3 tables, big ones, and then maybe a table or 2 for supplies. There's no way at the present time that I can teach that class at all under the directive of our community club saying that we can't have access to that other room anytime that we want. If I have the 6 novices come in, then maybe one, might go on and make some very nice baskets, freelance, do whatever she wants. In that case, she can come in anytime whatsoever during the week and go to the supply cabinet and just start making a basket. She'll have, just anything she wants to do. If she needs advice, if I'm around, then, I give some advice. But, so we have that, and then we have, at the new site, the library, again, is gonna have just one half of the building and limited, as requested, we have to reserve the other half. No free access. This is an extremely inefficient use of Macon County funds. We should have total, or the library should have total access to the other half of the building. Any questions?
Is that your?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Okay. Potluck tomorrow.
Thank you, Susan. Stephanie McGath.
My concerns are also librarian in nature, our own Macon County Library. When making life choices, one must know the handbook of the creator of life. That handbook is written so that one can know the heart of his creator, for the creator desires that life lived according to his guidance enables successful living between the person and his creator. There are guidelines and boundaries designed for our good. Stepping outside of these, a free will choice our creator allows brings personal enslavements and confusion, false happiness, the shakiness of shifting personal values where there is no known solid base. The position of leadership is a hard position in which to sit. One reason is that its decisions impact what others can be led to think is successful living. There are multiple points of view presented in a library. Patrons of Macon County's library are actively imploring leadership to set into place boundaries, to give the gift of time to our young, to grow in understanding of consequences life choices will have without impressing their young years with the topics beyond their young years, and obvious promotion of topics library patrons are requesting to be handled with great sensitivity. It is an easy thing to guide a young, trusting person to perceive that boundaries and guidelines hinder a person's happiness, especially those given by their creator, the one in whom is found perfect prudence and discretion. I'm presenting the request for great sensitivity with prudence and discretion towards youth's vulnerability in our library. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Frida Bennett.
Yeah, I'm Frida. You've all heard from me. I've taught for 34 years. Most of those years were in Macon County and Highlands. I'm in a unique situation because the the children that we have now in pre-K, and that's why I'm here. Pre-K and the programs for Macon County, for Highlands, that seem to have been taken away. And we'd like them back. My children would like them back because they are ours. My unique situation is that these children are my great and grand students, and they are so important. And I know you love children as much as I. You care about them as much as I. You just look at it at a different point of view. So I'm here tonight to say I really appreciate it if you look at our point of view for what our children need, not just in Highlands. We're so happy Franklin's getting a high school. That's wonderful. We're happy. We're just happy to see any child getting anything. But here's what's happening. We send a lot of money for taxes, and because we're only about 1/10 of your student body, we don't really require a lot of financing that might be required in your bigger schools. But we need it. We need our children in pre-K. We're not rich. These children are not rich. I know them. They are children. What we do if we take away this program, if we take away pre-K, and so many, and I think each of you told me, you're so for pre-K, but you don't want the county to have to finance it. I get that, but sometimes state legislatures just will not do what they should do. And sometimes we just have to say, we'll pick up that mantle and we'll do it one at a time. So our kids, we need to fund pre-K. We have 900 slots for kids, from daycare to pre-K to just play school. That's great in Macon County, but we have in the last census 1,800 children who fall below the age of 5. So that means that 900 children are going to have the benefit of learning pre-K, and we have 900 that are going to enter kindergarten, and they're just not going to be possibly exposed to the same things that those pre-K children were. So we send taxes for equity, and what we're asking is that equity come back to us. Just, it seems like a small request. Maybe it's not, but maybe it's time to say, but we'll pick this up and we'll do it. Also, I was so perturbed because everything I read about it, I read your emails and appreciated your comments. I read the paper, and the Board of Education does not see it as you are seeing this. I don't know why. I don't know if it's miscommunication, but I can't make head or tails out of it. The priority, why in the world are we prioritizing sewage and waste? That should just be something that you jump on and you fix, because kids need it. But the Board of Education seems to believe that number 2 in priority was the Highlands project. They say, from what I read, it was never changed. That's not what I'm hearing on one side, and I think it's just, we're not communicating. I think there's because I know you care. So and I don't understand throwing away $35,000 taxpayer money. That's one beginning teacher's salary for the year. 35, well, I think it's now up to 37. Now, that's one teacher we could have funded with that. Now, I know that there are perks, the other things. So here I'm just saying, if we could possibly look at funding our Highlands expansion, it would be so appreciated. We really would like to have it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's open.
Ms. Bennett,
Oh,
may I address your concerns, please, because,
I'm sorry. I was nervous.
oh, I understand, but, there are some things in the paper, I clipped out all this stuff that, this Board of Commissioners, number 1, as I said in the email, it's not the Board of Commissioners' responsibility to tell the school system what is needed. This little, ad in the the write-up in the paper. The reason for canceling the contract was given by County Commissioner Chair Paul Higdon as a change in recommendations from the liaison committee to the school system. The liaison committee chose 5 other projects to prioritize: Macon Middle School vent pipe, Nantahala School wastewater treatment plant, Highlands Middle School renovations, and repairing the Macon Middle School running track and build a new Franklin High School. That is false. The school board,
Is
in my
that
view-
from the school board?
no, this right here is in the newspaper in Highlands that you
But
were
is
referring
it
to.
written by a school board member?
I have no idea because there's no name on it. It just says
I
our
would urge you,
view.
have you read the March 2nd, school board member interpretation?
Well, okay. I had an in-depth meeting
Okay.
at Highland School, okay? This board and the $35,000 that you're referring to is not a waste of money. It has simply been removed by the school system as the top 5 priorities.
No, but you still had to pay the 35, right?
Well, it's not a waste of money because that project is not dead. It is not going, in my understanding, in this budget cycle, the Highlands pre-K is not a dead issue. We have 100.
You know, I'm just gonna interrupt here a minute.
Well-
It seems so very strange to me that I would have to argue or defend a position from the person who is elected to represent my
I'm
children.
not arguing with you, I'm trying to give you I'm
I've
trying,
read and I don't understand, and I appreciate it. I've read it and reread it and studied. I don't know, I'm not smart enough to know.
if you would have listened to the last meeting when, Chairman Breedlove stood up, and he said, we are not removing pre-K from the capital needs of Macon County school system. Okay, he said that.
And I
And,
appreciate that.
okay, so therefore, the liaisons, Commissioner Young and Commissioner Shields, they went to the meeting. Unfortunate thing was, we met the day before the school board did, or a few days or whatever, and we voted to defund that because it was not the top 5 priority list of the school system. And then the school system met, and it was all based on the school system having the same vote, and they voted the same way. So had the school system voted and said, no, pre-K in Highlands is #1, it would have come back to this board and we would have funded it.
So when the board says it was always number 2, they are incorrect?
Where's the list? We had the list that said,
No, the Board of Education, not
Right.
you, I mean,
well, I mean, that's what was presented to this board by the liaisons to the school board.
I'm just going by what I read and
I
what I
understand.
study.
But this is coming out of my mouth, and you can go back to the last meeting, and I'm sure that you can verify this because I've had numerous meetings with school officials and the general public about this issue.
Okay, when do you believe that Highlands pre-K and pre-K in Franklin, in Macon, when will that become one of the 5 priorities?
Ask the school board, ma'am. I
But
mean,
they tell me it's already number 2.
Yeah, let's don't get into,
okay.
it was never #2 to any of our knowledge.
Okay,
And we're trying to develop some structure in our funding.
okay,
This board thinks very highly of school-related projects. We're very highly, and children's needs. I've been on this board for 10 years. I never heard of Highlands Pre-K until the past chairman said he would like to see it done before he left office.
may I mention something?
Certainly.
You, as I mentioned, I think we were promised pre-K 15 years ago with the demise of our Head Start. Was that not true?
I don't remember yesterday,
So
about 15 years ago.
The only reason I'm here And please
I know, and I
understand,
appreciate that, Fred, I understand
because
the
these
concern.
kids are my kids.
I understand the
And I want them
concerns.
to be as equal wherever, whatever state, whatever place they go. I want them, and that's all I want. I'm not criticizing you, because I don't understand. It's like I told a couple of you. I don't come to commissioners' meetings because I trust you to be the experts. I know that you care about Macon County. I know you care about Macon
It's tough.
County
It's
children.
tough.
But this time, I feel like I'm sort of an expert because of 34 years of teaching. So I came. And now I've got to get back up the mountain before it gets dark, because Lord knows, I never thought I'd be old enough to worry about getting home by dark. It just never occurred to me. So I appreciate your answer. You know, I know you'll think about our kids, and thank you.
And to carry that a little farther, we alluded to, some issues that were declared emergencies in this funding cycle. All we're trying to do, we only have so much money unless we tax y'all a bunch more, and I don't think anybody here is for that. We have so much money to put into education, put into the courthouse, put into law enforcement, EMS. It's a tough act to balance. Education is certainly important. Our current debt services for school construction, that's what, 20 something million dollars? But we care about education, but we have to have structure. We've got this amount of money that we can allocate for a particular department. Please prioritize the top 3 or 4 things. If you stay for the meeting, you're going to get into some of that for county buildings, how we're prioritizing. And we're trying to fix some of these things that in essence have been neglected. The treatment plant in Nantahala dumping sometimes untreated wastewater or failing wastewater into the Nantahala River. We got sewer gases at Macon Middle School, had them for 50 years. At some point, stop, fix these things, and then let's see what we can do moving forward. So what we've done is we picked 5, the school board recommended 5 top priorities for this funding cycle, over $120 million. Those are what we're addressing right now. Pre-K and Highlands, Pre-K anywhere is not dead. It just didn't make this funding cycle, so we've not forgotten about it. But we understand the importance of early education, and it's a tough act to fund and balance everything. And that's what we're trying to do, is to establish some structure in our funding procedures. Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Gary Ronnie?
Good evening, folks. My name is Gary Abrignani, and I understand I've dealt with that all my life. But there are a few things that have come to fruition right now, and one of them is trying to understand how the county came up with structuring their new assessments, whether it be vacant property or real property. I've been looking around, talking with people, and it doesn't appear to be any type of formula that's been used to reassess a private residence or a vacant piece of property. Can you help me out here? Direct me where I can find something, or maybe explain to me how you came about these new assessments?
The value.
Yeah, have you contacted the Macon County Tax Office?
I was down there yesterday, but they were so busy, I really couldn't get a chance to talk with them. I had dropped off some documents myself, questioned the new assessments.
I know they are busy right now, but I do know there has been numerous people with yourself that have questions like yourself, and they've been setting up times, and I know that they have been receiving responses back as soon as they get a chance. But our tax office, I can tell you with certainty, will bend over backwards to help you and get any questions you have answered.
Okay, so there's really no formula, it's just a matter.
There's a
No,
schedule.
they'll be, but they're the experts, and they conduct the revaluation, and I think they can give you the detailed explanation that you're looking for.
Okay.
A schedule of values, is that the proper term? No? Yes?
Can I go ahead and just?
Abby Braswell.
Hi, everybody, I'm the tax administrator.
Sure.
How's that?
Come on up. You're more than welcome to take the stage.
I would love to take the
Okay,
stage.
the other question I have is what happens when the time comes when property values start to go down? do we get reassessed at a different rate, or maybe you can help me there too? And I guess I'll turn the microphone over to this young lady, because.
Then Abby Braswell
That's what
and-
I'm looking for, thank you.
This is one of my appraisers, Tommy Allen. Tommy has worked for the county for almost 25 years.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, thank you.
So repeat your question to me.
Okay, the question was, going through the evaluation on assessments, whether it be a residential property or a vacant land, is there a formula that's used for each particular parcel? Or from what I've been reading, they seem like they've been just kind of grouped together and averaged some way, shape, or form. Can't find out, but I will go down to the tax department and get some answers. Thank you.
That is the,
That's it.
She's the one.
that's the hidden spring. right there.
She's the head.
Okay. Everything that we do in the tax office is dictated by the state. We have a machinery act that tells us what we can and cannot do, and how we do it, when we do it, and that's what we go by. So that's our laws right there, that we have to follow. I just printed these out, the Department of Revenue, you can look online, I found these myself online, it describes everything, the rules, in plain English, not a book that you have to try to find. I do have these handouts. As far as the schedule, there's a schedule of values, it's been in our office since August. We presented to the commissioners in August, at their August meeting, the schedule of values, and the schedule is what we go by. So what we do is mass appraisal. We do not do individual appraisal of everybody's property. The gentleman who works with us, who does our reevaluation, who also does Jackson County's reevaluation, has been doing this for 30-some years. We create a schedule based on market value, based on the sales for Macon County. We do it by neighborhood. So land value, you can extract land value from sales that have houses on them as well, if there are no land values. And the schedule that we presented in August, and then in September, there was a public meeting, there was a public, for everybody to come to say, explain this to me, I don't understand this, look at this, it's been in the tax office right up front, and that was in the paper. All public meetings or that has to be by our book. We have to put that in the paper to give you time. There's a 30-day window to go look at that, and then in October, you could come back also before we voted on it. It was presented in October for a vote to pass that schedule of values. And once that schedule of values is set, then everything has a base. And based on a neighborhood, so if a certain area is selling, if your land is selling for $10,000 an acre, but then if you have a slope, or if you have a view, or if you're near water, everything gets applied from that base up. Houses, square footage, age, condition, building materials, all make a difference in how you're valued. And it's based on that schedule that we have in the office. Porches, they have we use the valuing, Marshall and Swift valuing guide and that's a national company that tells you in your area what it is per square foot for certain types of materials, for certain types of buildings, and we go by that as well. So if anybody wants to come look at that, it's right at the front desk where you came in to drop off your appeals. Also, we have, as far as appeals go, right now, yesterday was the deadline, and I understand some people, didn't have time. We're still accepting appeals, but we have to have a deadline, because now this is our informal appeal. In order for y'all to get this back, and if you're not satisfied with what we've done or what we look at, then you have the chance to appeal to the Board of Equalization and Review. This is also something that has been mentioned at several meetings. I've been at every meeting since July, announcing this. So you still have time to appeal. We have an online portal, we have email that you can also email to, you can bring it in. We do not accept phone because you have to have some documentation. So I invite everybody to come and stop by the office, come look at our books, come discuss. We could have something wrong. We have obviously we have 44,100 parcels. We actually have 43,131 parcels that are taxable. If you request a visit, we'll visit you. We'll send the appraisers out. We do not look in people's houses as to what it's like on the inside. So if you have some kind of issue whether it's a condition, leaking roof, rotting floors, decks, we don't actually know that unless somebody tells us. So I invite y'all to come and stop by. But once we get to this point, like right now, we can accept appeals up to a certain point, but I'm gonna be meeting with the Board of Equalization and Review. The Board of Equalization and Review are 5 members of the community. We have Richard Leitner, the previous tax administrator. We have Gary Drake from Highlands, who's an appraiser. We have Dwight Vincent, who is an appraiser from Franklin. We have Christine Flagg from Nantahala, who's a real estate agent. And we have Donald Holland from Franklin that is a builder. These are your 5 members that sit on the board. And once you go to the board, you have to bring certain things to them. We schedule a meeting for you, and then you present to them. And then you have your meeting, and then they tell you what they think, what you need to do, if they agree with you, why they don't agree with you. And then, after that meeting, all of those meetings are over, we send you a letter. You then have actually a chance to go to the Property Tax Commission, which is in Raleigh. That's a little more difficult, but you still have that. And after the Property Tax Commission, you have the chance to appeal to the state. There's a process, but we have to start this process, and there has to be an end for each one to continue. And it has to be within a certain time frame. Our rules say on a reevaluation year, we have to start, well, any year, we have to start the Board of Equalization Review after the first Monday in April, which is the 3rd of this year. So I don't know those meetings yet, but once we set those meetings, it will be advertised in the paper 3 times. It'll be, well, actually 4. 2 in the Highlands paper, 2 in the Franklin paper. So 4 weeks, it will be advertised. Those times and those dates, and they will be downstairs in the Commissioner's Boardroom. You will need an application for that. You can come in on the very last day with your application and all of your documentation and present to them as well. But we'd like to have an orderly meeting so that it's not just everybody sitting there waiting for that to happen. So we like to make a schedule so that everybody has their time and knows when they're going to be heard. So that's the process for that. Is there any other questions?
Can I, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, for those of us that have already filed an appeal, will those be addressed before this meeting time?
Well, yes. So the process goes, this is the informal process right now, and that's why there's a cutoff date, because we have to get, right now we have 1,700 and some, and there's 3 of us working those. We also have visits that we have 2 people, well, now 4, going out to do the visits. If you have something wrong, say your square footage is wrong, we have to send somebody out to actually measure that square footage so that we can correct it. So we need to get those done within the next 3 to 4 weeks so that everybody can get their letter and then appeal to the Board of Equalization and Review. But if we have questions about your appeal, we will call you, and we plan on trying to email everybody when notice that they're going to receive their letter. So you will know to expect that either in the mail or we can email it to you.
Go ahead, sir. I'll go ahead.
You were saying as you go by your laws and rules in the book.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out how your laws and rules doesn't have a cap when mine was appraised 81% higher than it was last year. So what algorithm do you use, and is there a cap on these appraisals because it went from 145 to 347?
There is not. There is not a cap. North Carolina law does not have a cap of your assessment. So the assessment is market value. what is selling in the market.
During the COVID market.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
The last 3 years.
So let me tell you this. So reevaluation happens every 4 years.
Right.
Your value stays the same for 4 years, no matter what the market does. We cannot change it during that 4 years. So if the market tanks next year, like it did in 2007, your value is gonna stay the same. But the millage rate takes care of that difference. As Derek told at the last meeting, there's a revenue neutral. So when your value goes up, the millage rate comes down and equals out. Not everybody's is gonna go up, you're not gonna go up as much as your value went up. So you're not appealing your taxes, you're appealing your assessment, is what you're really doing with this meeting and the informal review. But you have 3 chances, even 4, to go before a board and argue your point. But come see us, talk to us, tell us your concerns. We'll show you what we have and how we do it. We have a great new tax payment system that we can show you where the sales are, we can show you, and there's always gonna be outliers. There's always gonna be sales higher that we know are not correct, or there's gonna be sales lower that we know are not true sales. We take those into account. So,
Rather than appealing the value of the property of the house, because we want the property or the value of the house, whether they're listening to this one too. In Montana, for example, I've seen this before, around a lake called Whitefish. All these wealthy people are coming out of California to buy these properties as vacation homes. Well, all the locals that lived there could not afford what happened when the properties shot through the roof and the taxes went with them. So the way that this was handled to properly disperse all that is to cap what could, not the value, but to cap what could happen with the taxing. So like a 1% increase per year on the taxes could happen, not changing the value of the house. If your house went from 185 to 310, it could still sit at 310 in case you wanted to make that sale. But what did happen is if somebody came in and made a purchase at 310, that tax value now went with that to 310 because the person that made the purchase is agreeing to the fact that that house is worth 310. So for anybody that lives here and lived in a home for 20 years, instead of all of a sudden on a fixed income, instead of all of a sudden going, bang, we're gonna 30% more on your taxes right now, it could go at 1% percentages until they made a sale. Because otherwise you're just gonna push it out. I mean, it's, like he said, I know mine went from 315 to 575. So that's a substantial jump. Millage might affect that a little bit, but if there was a cap, it wouldn't have to be an argument every year. It would just say, stop. Everybody can agree to 1%. I think everybody would agree to that. Do a 1% increase, and then without, so you guys are still doing your job properly, but the capping can stay. And that way we had to sell the values there.
in order for that to happen, you would have to go to your state legislator and have that passed.
And the
That would
state
have
will
to
not, so this is enforced, there's nothing that can be done at this level to slow that down?
100% dictated by the state of North Carolina.
Raleigh, you gotta go to Raleigh.
You have to go to Raleigh and
And we're
have the
told that's
rules
value,
changed.
so
Because it's a
You'll
no
have to
argument about the value of your home. Nobody wants to argue the value of their home down.
for those,
You wouldn't want to do that.
thank you, Abby. For those of you with specific questions, please contact Abby. She'll give you how to get hold of her, call me.
And I promise I will call you back, but it may take a couple
What's your
days.
contact
I wanna tell, I just wanna, so, anybody who is over 65 on a fixed income, the state has a program for you to apply. Yes, you have to live here, and it does have a, income. This year is $33,800. If you make that or less, you can actually apply for that program, and it will take off of your taxes. It'll take half off your house and 1 acre of land. So there's always, that's available. We have a disabled veteran and a disability exemption as well, that you can apply.
But
I would
no,
like to
yeah.
say that the appeals that we have had, we only have 4%. We only have 1,700 appeals out of 44,000 parcels.
Thank you, Tom.
Just mine.
Well, and the
use value, you have larger tracts of land, you'll probably see that your value increased this year. Well, this year, for the first time since I've been doing this in over 20 years, the state increased the per acre price for use value. The agriculture went from $380, forestry went from about $195 to $380 per acre, and agriculture went from $780 to $1,200 per acre. So if you see that in your taxes, you'll understand why there was an increase in your value for those who have use value.
What is your contact information? Daniel?
If you go on the Macon County website, maconNC.org, you can go to the tax website, and my email and my phone number is there. I can give it to anybody that wants to. It's 828-349-2148 is my phone number. It's abraswell@maconNC.org.
Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tommy. Hopefully that'll alleviate some of the concerns. I know people are nervous about the fact. Linda Herman. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did.
Oh. Come on up, Linda. Are you satisfied?
I won't need to come up. No, Mickey Duvall and I wanted to expose exactly the same thing this gentleman did, and she answered, so thank you.
So we're gaining time. Claudia Aguilar?
Good evening. So I see that ethics is on the agenda, and I'm really glad to see that. So ethics in government are vital because they promote public trust, fairness, and accountability, as well as legitimacy. Long-term planning is another thing that ethics can help with. When public officials adhere to ethical standards, they are better equipped to serve the needs of their constituents and create a more equitable society. So recently, it had come to my attention that Macon County Board of Commissioners do not have an adopted code of ethics, and I thought that was a little bit concerning. During my research, I found that a code of ethics was voted on and adopted by Board of Commissioners December 13th of 2010, as required by the law. But when I called Mr. Decker, I'm so sorry to call you out like this, but when I called Mr. Decker, he wasn't really aware of a code of ethics and couldn't find one, and that is a little bit concerning. I called Jackson County to see if they had a code of ethics, and within 20 minutes I got an email back from their attorney. So, during my time in the military, I had a supervisor that was a little bit harsh on me and would let me know that very clearly that I wasn't an expert in my field. She did that to push me to get into my books and to become an expert in my field. So that's what I'm doing here, gentlemen. I need you to become experts in your field. If a 27-year-old with 2 kids, super busy, can find out that you guys don't have a code of ethics, that is very concerning. And I really do appreciate you guys bringing the code of ethics to the forefront and putting it on the agenda. But like I said, I called Jackson County, and within 20 minutes, I had a copy of the code of ethics in my email. So if you could, please become experts in your field. But thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Jim Jackson.
My name is Jim Gaston, and I will be under 5 minutes. I've been proud to be a Macon County resident for nearly 10 years. And briefly, I want to speak in support of library employees. I'd like to ask this board to strongly consider not renewing the contract between Macon County and the Fontana Regional Library System, or FRL, that consists of Jackson, Swain, and Macon counties. The FRL was started in the 1940s with a bookmobile to service rural families employed by the Tennessee Valley Authority during hydroelectric projects in western North Carolina. Macon County already had 2 libraries before the turn of the century where the local needs of Maconians were being met. The current populations of Macon, Swain, and Jackson counties are large enough and have progressed enough since the 1940s to easily sustain their own county libraries. Karen Wallace, former FRL director, was quoted in October 2014 saying, "Throughout our history, we've tried to respect the fact that each community is different." I agree with her 100%, and the best way we can recognize that Macon County is different is by rejecting a regional system that cannot effectively manage taxpayers' money across 3 different counties. As recently as 2016, Macon County was spending more per person for library services than any surrounding county. Yet, according to administrative staff within the FRL, the money was never enough. One upper staff member at a FRL board meeting said, "It's nice to spend other people's money." Earlier this year, the FRL asked for more money on top of the increase they already received from the previous year. They admitted that they were incapable of paying the dedicated staff a living wage with the extra funding. And as a side note, everyone, including the local media, should already realize that this commissioner board has absolutely nothing to do with setting salaries for the library staff. So it was clearly the inability of management to prioritize something as vital as funding employee wages. If the FRL cannot do something as simple as prioritize in order to pay their employees a fair wage, it's become obvious that the FRL is antiquated and should cease to function due to financial reasons. All of us love the library and want to see the everyday employees earn a livable wage. Macon library staff could earn a better paycheck if Macon County pulls out of the FRL. Macon taxpayers deserve to keep their money in Macon County the same way we choose to shop locally. Within the FRL, Macon taxpayers will potentially be on the hook for building a new library in Swain County where Maconians have no need to use that library. Macon County does not build new schools for Swain or Jackson counties, and neither should we build their libraries. Macon County revenue should go only towards Macon County interests, and that fact alone should be something everyone can unite on. Furthermore, as long as Macon County libraries remain part of the FRL, taxpayers in Macon County will not have an adequate voice in how their money is spent, since the FRL board only has a minority 3 seats for Macon County on a board of 9. After Macon residents have seen their property values increase and knowing that Macon County spent a huge sum of approximately $1.2 million last year on the FRL, taxpayers want more accountability. Financial accountability will remain difficult as a member of the FRL. Finally, if Macon County pulls out of the FRL and reverts back to being its own library system like so many other counties around the state and nation, Macon residents would still have access to all materials, not only within surrounding counties, but the entire state of North Carolina through the Cardinal program that any library can join for free. All books, media, and other resources can be swapped and borrowed at no charge through the Cardinal system, co-op. So there's no need to stay within the FRL for access. The vast majority of us in Macon County are thankful that this current Commissioners Board is committed to being financially conservative and responsible and takes a stand for the taxpayer by challenging the growth of government. Please remain consistent and keep up the good work. Let's put our community and Maconians ahead of the bureaucracy of the FRL in order to build a better future for our children and to pay library staff in Macon County a living wage. Thanks.
Hazel Morris.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to speak. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate everything you guys do. From y'all to the school board, I wouldn't have your job. There's been many times I said I want to run for commissioner, but I wouldn't have your job. I know you're getting a lot of slack when it comes to the new schools, what you got to do in Allahala, what you got to do in Highlands. I have family in Allahala. I have family in Highlands. Born and raised here in Macon County all my life. 8 generations. But I want to tell you a little story. I used to think what's good for you is good for me. And in some sense, I still believe that. But what's good for me may not always be good for you. We have to come down, we have to prioritize, we just can't throw money away. Our government is doing enough of that. We're going broke. And they're handing out more money, free money. What happened to people working to earn that dollar? With that being said, I agree, Highlands needs a new pre-K. But after talking and doing some digging of my own today, here's what I came up with. If they have a high school, they're gonna have to hire two new teachers. I mean, it's a pre-K, they're gonna have to hire two. To go under some of their guidelines, they will have to hire a third teacher that specializes in special ed. Because they cannot just not offer that to a special ed child. Just like Macon County. We have the same thing, program in Macon County. MPP was a big part of Highlands years ago. And they had from birth to 5. But Highlands did not meet the criteria to keep that program up there, which is sad. It should, they should have enabled it. Income based, a lot of Highlands people is not meeting that criteria. And you're not putting it off the table. You're not saying we're never going to do it. It may not be this year. Just like the high school, it's not going to be this year. Do we need a new high school? Absolutely, I'm 100% for the new high school. But we need to set an example for our children, most of all. Our children does not need to see grown people bicker every minute of the day of something that we have no control over as money-wise. And people says, well, my kids don't get on Facebook. Bull, they do. They're in school, they're on Facebook. They're on something, they're on social media. But we need to set an example, most of all for our kids. Where is our, they say our kids are important. Absolutely, our kids are important. But we need to set an example. We don't need to fuss every time. We don't need to be putting our commissioners down. We don't need to be putting our school board down, because they're working every minute of the day to try to improve what we live here in Macon County. So just thank you guys. And what I love about you guys, we voted you in. If we don't like it, vote you out in 4 years. But the thing I like about you guys, I like the fact that each of y'all stands up for what you believe in. We should never not stand up for what we believe in. We should always stand up for what we believe in. So thank you. And if there's any school administration, I know Mr. Breedlove is here. Thank you for everything you do.
Hazel, that's good. And this board, and all these guys handle me, we work for you all. We are your employees. We've been criticized some for being a little too informal in our public comment period, but what do? If we want to hear from the people that we represent, and as Hazel said, voted for us and support us, this is the only avenue we got. We're working on Facebook, trying to get on Facebook. I'll never be able to read because I don't do it. We work for y'all. We thank you for being here, and I wish we could answer every request, but we can't. It's a matter of prioritization. But anyway, enough on that. Thank you, Hazel. Jerry Moore.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this important project, the Highlands School Project. It's referred to as Highlands Pre-K sometimes, but it's bigger than just a pre-K. It's a school project. It's a project that's going to not only allow us to have pre-K in Highlands, which currently we have a waiting list between 50 and 60 kids that are trying to get into some form of childcare. We may not be able to take care of the lower levels, but as those kids can move up into pre-K, that's what we're looking at. So the Highlands School Project, as you well know, was approved back in October. I think you allocated funds in November. The project got started, the architects went out, they did their preview of the site, and they were ready to move forward. Last month, I understand the school board gave you a list of priorities of the projects that need to get done, but when I watched that meeting online, I didn't see any discussion. Can we go beyond those 5 priorities? Can we have 7? Can we have 8? What can we afford? There was no discussion on what we could afford. So I'm a little confused that $330,000 was allocated to start the architectural process. The process was started, so it must have been a priority at some point in time because money was allocated towards that. Architects were hired, a contract was signed, $35,000 spent so far. So I think the bigger question is, and I would like to hear, what can we afford? How much can this county commission give to the school board to complete those projects? Because I didn't hear that in the last meeting. I did see a gentleman get up here and talk about the potential, what debt service we have, our bond rating, and that we can't afford additional debt service to meet these needs. I did hear that. Highlands is a critical part of the Macon County economy. I mean, you folks know that. Many of you work in Highlands in various ways. You understand the benefits we have. With only 3,500 year-round residents, we get money from people that just come up through the summer, whether they're tourists, whether they're resort folks. We don't need a lot of services in Highlands. We don't need a health department in Highlands. You know, we have one sheriff's officer that is assigned to Highlands. We do have our own police department through the town of Highlands, and that's a whole separate taxing authority that some of us pay. So we don't need a lot of services, but our school is a critical part of our community. But it's not just the Highlands community that benefits from that school, it's people that live in Franklin that work in Highlands. I had a small business for 12 years in Highlands. A majority of my employees came from Franklin. They have children that, you know, the pre-K services and the child care services that we have in Highlands provides for them. Highlands needs Franklin, and Franklin needs Highlands. I don't want an us against them mentality. We're one county. I mean, to go to what Hazel is saying, we don't need to bicker, we need to work together. And I understand the critical needs for the projects that are presented, the maintenance issues. I don't want kids smelling sewer gas at Macon Middle School. I don't want Nantahala School shut down because they don't have a sewer. You know, I understand there's a need for a track at Macon Middle School, so we have one decent track in this community. What a great outlet for kids. My kids all ran track. I'm very supportive of that. I think the sports are important. We have a lot of needs. So I'm just concerned that we prioritize the Highlands pre-K. You got to understand, a group of private citizens came together, raised $35,000, and did a feasibility study and brought that study to you last year and said, we need this. We raised our own money so we could show you how much we need this, but we can't raise $4.7 million for the entire Highlands School project that'll address pre-K, that'll address the media center, that'll address additional classrooms, that'll get our high school classrooms out of the elementary wing. So it's going to do a lot more than pre-K, but we can't have pre-K without this entire project. And it's about a $5 million project. I mean, it pales in comparison to a needed project, you know, Franklin High School. I get that. That's a needed project. We need that for our county. We need that for our kids. So I would implore this commission to bring it up. Let's discuss it. If we can get at least the $330,000 in the next fiscal year budget, I know we may not be able to come up with the money to build it in 23 and 24, but at least we're ready to go. We're shovel ready, 24, 25, and we can move forward. If we take it off the table in the next fiscal year, I don't know when we'll be able to get it back. And it's critical to Highlands. I speak for so many people that we need this project to move forward, not to stop. It is a priority for the citizens of Highlands, and we pay over 50% of the ad valorem taxes. You want to talk about property valuation? If you go revenue neutral, most of our properties went up anywhere from 75% to over 120%. And even if you go revenue neutral, we're going to pay more. And we're willing to do that for Franklin, and we're willing to do that for Highlands as well. And you're not going to hear a lot of complaints from people up here saying, you know, don't tax me another $200 a year. Nobody likes taxes, but if we don't invest in our kids now, if we don't invest in pre-K, the day our kids get into kindergarten, they're behind. And guess what? My wife's a special ed teacher. She works with kids with dyslexia and other issues. They never catch up. they never catch up. So this is an investment in Macon County. This is an investment in the future. So if we don't prioritize this, I'm not sure what we should be prioritizing. So I would encourage this board, put that back on the agenda. Let's move forward with the Highland School project. Let's put the $330,000 back in the budget for 23 and 24, and let's make a difference for our young people. Thank you.
Would you mind if we just had listen, first I want to say I appreciate your passion. Thanks for coming down here. That was very well
Thank
spoken. All right, very well spoken. A couple of things that jump right out at me right off the bat. Okay, this board operates about 22, 24 businesses countywide. We run 25 businesses with balanced budgets. We're responsible for those budgets. School system has a board of elected officials. There's 5 elected officials. They balance their budget. They control their staff. They control their curriculum somewhat. And it's not our job to interfere. So a couple things I want to point out right now. 97% of our county debt is school related. 97%. We're talking about spending over $100 million on a high school. That's not included in the 97%. We're talking about potential $1 million plus at the middle school. Who knows what it's going to take at Nantahala. What's hard is, like, somebody has to be the bad parent. And look, Highlands does need pre-K. They genuinely need the pre-K. There's no doubt. I don't think anybody in this room will dispute that. The part that I have is, we're talking $100+ million on top of the debt capacity we already have. Plus, with all these government funds, Hazel referred to free money that came through. You realize next year, I'm probably wrong in saying this, there's 12 to 16 positions that are going to be coming off payroll that the school board's going to come ask us to fund. What's hard is, somebody has to be the bad parent, and it's hard, it's difficult. You know, it's easy for us to deflect this back to the school board and say, here, you prioritize. At the end of the day, that's what happens. You know, we run the county, we run 25 other departments, they run the school system. That's an elected body, and I trust them. You people put them in office. So at the end of the day, I think it's just worthy of taking note that I don't think anybody here is adamantly against that. I don't think anybody has an axe to grind, and I think it's kind of been misconstrued that we do. The anxiety I have is money. You know, I mean, you see the passion that people brought in here with the tax increases. I feel that as well. I think we all feel that. But the issue I have is we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in the school system already carries.
And I understand that priority, but when you look at 60 kids that are not having their needs met, their parents or one parent can't go to work, or they're with a grandparent, we got to make this investment. And you guys can figure out the money. We're not a broke county, okay? We have $36 million in reserve. We do have a school project that we're going to have to address. We're going to finance that over a period of time. Hopefully, we're going to get that grant from the state. I think if they see us start to spend this money on these projects, hopefully we're going to get that money. But all I'm asking, I'm not sitting here, let's have $5 million handed to us tonight, but let's move forward with what this board, not you, the makeup that I'm seeing here, but what this board did 3 or 4 months ago, which is to start this project rolling, because we were ready to go, and I think the people of Highlands were excited about that. And it's critical to us. It's critical to the families up there. But I understand where you're coming from, but it's not easy. We're going to have to borrow money. We're going to have to pay it off over time. Hopefully we can get some grants in the interim. But yeah, I get it. It's hard.
There's no easy solution.
You know, I tried to be in your seat. It didn't work out. And I looked at those issues, you know, long and hard. And it's difficult. So one thing I would encourage you to do is 2024, put the quarter-cent sales tax back on. That's a minimum $1.5 million a year. That pays for our school in 3 years. And I get it. Some people didn't want that. But all of the counties around us, they have that quarter-cent sales tax that they're taking advantage of. And 50% of it is getting paid by people who don't live in Macon County, who don't pay property taxes here. I mean, we got to encourage the people. That's important. That's a revenue stream. We need revenue streams from all over. Sales tax, you know, ad valorem, all of them. So I know it's tough. Thank you for what you're doing.
Carter Davis.
Now it's back on. First, good evening, and thanks, Commissioner, thank y'all for allowing us to come. It is very difficult to follow Jerry Moore, the eloquent, compassionate man that he is, and I applaud and agree with all he said. I've been an avid supporter of the Highland School for 30 years, and when I heard about this pre-K project, I was really excited, because it's all the kids that live in the community. This really helps our full-time year-round residents. And I'm gonna be short, because I'm gonna say, I totally support the pre-K, and in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I gotta say about that.
Danny Shepherd.
Thank you for having me. I was in this room about a week ago paying a traffic ticket, and I hope this is the last time I have to hear it. My issue is with the local library and the system and their attitude towards displaying the LGBTQ literature and books and whatever that involves, and the ethics behind that whole situation. I gave this letter to the board this afternoon, and I'm going to read it to you, and then also give copies to you. Excuse my typos on some of this. During a short trip to Arlington.
I think you matched it up.
It's raining, right? Oh, okay, there I am. During a short trip to Arlington, Texas, I had a chance to stop and talk to one of the librarians. It was stated that libraries' broad demographics take into account the young and old and the materials of both local and world involvements. But doing so is to respect this broad range of interaction and the placement of these materials. The discussion of the American Library Association and other library associations that libraries can be involved in. She said that they all had a role in the direction and the function of how they operate. This is also in conjunction with local governments and citizen boards. In other words, it's a reflection of the community at large. It's become obvious that the forces or powers of the American Library Association or that of our local library board seems to pay little attention to what our community's concerns are. I see absolutely no reason why any government system should be involved in any sexual identity education or open display, and why they themselves have given themselves the sole right to do so, and to take that right away from what should only involve the parent or the guardian of the child. What boundaries do you have that protects the most innocent among us? Does everything become allowed? Is bestiality, incest, anything the human mind can invent acceptable? If the display of LGBT materials are okay and easy access, what within your ethical standards is something not allowed? Where is there a line drawn that says we cannot go down this road? Or we must respect and honor the ethics of our community and their concerns? If the display of sexual explicit materials or lifestyles is open and allowed, you will find yourselves as a government entity in conflict with other parts of government. I have had several conversations with our local law enforcement. They have several officers that their sole responsibility is within sexual communications and this involvement with minors and or adults with minors. They get information from federal, state, local, of internet connections, phone conversations, or materials that take place are young at risk of being exploited. So while talking to the officer, it was quickly identified that there's a war of sorts that on one hand, our government system allows or encourages, and as at our schools or libraries. Then on the other, as in law enforcement, we fight the very thing that we seem to encourage. How is it we can follow what makes sense of these standards? I have nothing against the LGBT community. They can do as they please with themselves. But the forcing or display of lifestyles upon our children and those who oppose such a lifestyle just because you feel you have a right to, then I see no need of any library board, for everything becomes acceptable because we have no value within the ethics the board says it has. Thank you.
Robert Bull?
I have many questions and concerns about property appraisals, but I'll address the tax assessment office in my time.
Please come back and let us know how that went. Jeff Weller?
Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Sorry, that sounds very loud. It's not loud in the back. A couple things. I just want to say I completely agree with what Jerry Moore was talking about. But you all know I'm part of AHEC, the Advancing Highlands Education Committee. We have actually been working on this project for over 2 years now. We came to you all in March of last year, 3 of you at least, March of last year, and presented it. And I know, we all know the history behind it from there. One thing I do want to mention though, just from an education standpoint, everybody keeps calling it a Highlands Pre-K project. Highlands Pre-K, according to the architecture firm and the construction estimates, making 2 classrooms in Highlands into Pre-K, and then you have to have a designated small playground outside just for them, age specific, amounts to about 5% of the $4.7 million, 5%. With that said, the other part of that is a complete renovation and expansion of the media center. We have a K through 12 library media center at the school that has not been renovated in, I've been here 30 years, I've never seen a renovation. It also includes 4 new classrooms on the middle school building so we can get high school students out of the elementary wing. It allows for a computer lab. In Highlands, we're a small school, so we have a lot of computer-generated and teacher on a screen education in classes. So there are kids that sit 2 out of 4 classes for block schedule in a computer lab that does not have a window. It feels to me like my old wrestling room with the pipes going overhead, not a window in the place, etc. And also there is the old drafting room and the old wood shop, which has been stripped out. It looks like an old warehouse, painted floors chipping up, etc. That space was going to be renovated into project-based learning as well as career and technical education. So training these kids, because everybody agrees, not every kid's going to go to college. Some of them are going to be better suited to be an electrician or a plumber, and God knows we need them more than we need kids going to college for 2 years and then not knowing what they want to do. With that said, I just want to make sure that everybody understands, you all understand the program. When we presented it 2 years or a year ago now, this month, 3 of you were there. The other ones, we presented the study that AHEC had funded. But I also wanted to mention that when we presented all that, there was a project brought forward, and I call it the Highlands School Project, not the pre-K. Because again, it's a very small portion of it financially. It's a huge part of it community-wise. But when that all came forward, keep in mind, we had, there was also the renovation of the middle school building. That came up because the school system said, we need this as well. So that was all one project, which makes sense. Why renovate part of the middle school building and then add on to it later and tear out brand new windows, etc. Makes sense to me. I own an architecture firm. Makes perfect sense to try and lump things together so that you can save money down the road. With that said, since that time, when the prioritization came out, January 6th, the school board sent the memo to you all about the prioritization. So I know one of the top 5 is the Macon Middle School project, or the track. And that makes sense to me because it was stated you need that in order for the high school to happen. But that had a grant. There was grant money available for that. So I'm not sure why that would be a capital outlay if you already have the money in a grant. There was also the Highland School, middle school renovation of doing new windows, new air conditioning units, fresh air makeups, etc. That is also funded by a grant. But that grant was going to be part of a bigger project. And the way that I read the January 6th memo, including the exact list that I have here, from the school board, Nana Hill Sewer Plant, they did say it was an emergency, they didn't put a number on it. And it says on here that there's 2024 repair and renovation fund would pay for it. Number one, the Franklin High School project. I'm 100% behind it, our county needs it, Franklin needs it. It's ideal at this time to do this, and that project is needed, and it addresses many, many different parts. But if you realize that like the athletic fields and the high school all get lumped into a big project, right? So that's number one. 1B was the Macon Middle School track, which is funded through a grant. So not sure why that's a priority list item, since it's already funded. But then 2A is the Highlands project, which included the renovation and everything else I just described. If we had known going into this that because it's already funded, that the middle school renovations would get pulled out of it and labeled as a separate project, I'm just confused how it can be 2A on here, but not in the top 5 in the discussion. 2B is the soccer field at the school, which was frozen solid today, by the way. And then 3 was Cartuga J Elementary and classroom addition. So I wanted to bring up one, education on what the project all entails. And secondly, I'm a bit confused how it's not in the top 5 if you have multiple projects that were previously funded through grants that are being thrown ahead of a project that we are asking for funding. So those are all rhetorical questions to be discussed down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Wendy McGaha.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm here about the library as well. Very concerned. We went to the library meeting today and there was no discussion prior to, but they basically shut us down so they would not hear what we had to say. So we're here today to tell you what we were there to say. So I actually checked this book out of the Macon County Library. This is a very explicit book. It's in the section of what they consider teen section, 14 to 18. And it's very concerning to me that these books are out there just for their children. If these children are in school and they're going on a field trip or they have some sort of a class project that's going on or whatnot, they have to take a permission slip home to fill this permission slip out, have a parent sign for them to go on this trip or to participate in this activity at school or to be photographed at school for some sort of special occasion. But yet we can allow them to go into libraries, give them a card, and they have free access to everything in the library, including this. So that's my concern today, and that's why I'm here. I do think that we need to pull out of the Fontana Regional Library System and be just supportive of just Macon County. Because obviously there's a lot of concern with the fact that when we go to a meeting where Fontana is there, they do not want to hear what we have to say. They've shut us down. They're not hearing what we have to say. When we go to the meeting, like the one at Macon County Library this last time, that one there, the board is listening to us a little bit more. But it's very concerning today that they had everybody come into this meeting, but yet the public was not allowed to speak. They were not allowed to voice their concerns. But that's all I have to say.
Really quick, by a show of hands, how many of you guys were up at the library meeting this afternoon? All right, I want to take a moment to apologize to all of you for the way that you were all treated this afternoon. Personally, that was a disgraceful way of dealing with constituents. You know, you guys come in, you travel, you come to have your voices heard, and your voices do matter. When you're treated that way, there's no excuse. For those of you who have, stated about pulling out of the Fontana regional system, believe me, I'm completely on board with that. It's not a simple process. It is a hard process that we're definitely working super hard on trying to figure out how to do this the best way, because you can't just pull out of that system and leave the library, just hanging by itself. We have to have a system in place to be able to make sure that the library is functioning correctly. The fact that they silenced everyone up there on the day of a meeting, completely outrageous. The fact that they wouldn't let some of you in the building. I mean, my wife rode up with me and they wouldn't let her in, and I would have to go in by myself. Again, completely out of control, completely disgraceful. Just know that we are absolutely working super hard on this for all of you, especially for the kids, because this is completely disgraceful that you would have pornographic books with kids and you have people defending a position to say that that's okay for a child to read. If we read even with the book that Wendy just had, I think it's called Flamer, if we tried to read excerpts from that book right now in this room, you'd probably have to ask me to be quiet because it's that explicit. But at the same time, that same book, we're saying it's okay for a child to read. It doesn't make sense. So just understand my heart. I know, these gentlemen up here are definitely on board, with the fact that these books are completely unacceptable to kids. And the fact that the Fontana regional system won't work with us, even in terms of separating them to make it even in an adult section to where kids cannot access it. For me personally, that tells me now you have an agenda. It's not even about these books. It's more of an agenda. And the fact that we're trying to hypersexualize kids, that's a perverted situation. That same book, if I were to hand that book to a child on the street, I can go to jail. But a library can hand that book out to any child for them to take that home to read. Unacceptable. So just understand that we're not being silent on this issue. I'm working super hard as a liaison for the library on this, and so is Mr. Hickman right here. So just know that your voices are being heard. And again, I'm sorry that happened up there. That was crazy. So many people had to leave within the first 15 minutes because of the way that meeting was conducted up there. So I apologize for that. You guys did not deserve that.
Virginia Cranfield.
Thank you, but I'm going to relinquish my time as a lot of my concerns were addressed by Abby Bradshaw, and I feel that my power lies in her office tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Potts.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. I appreciate the time. My name is Bonnie Potts, and like Hazel, I am a native of Macon County that goes back many generations. I've had the privilege of being the executive director for the Literacy and Learning Center in Highlands. We provide programs for both Highlands and for Franklin, but the one program in particular I want to talk about is our after-school program. It has a capacity of 50 children, and to get into this program, children must have a recommendation from their teacher. And it is the only program currently in Highlands that is serving students who have a documented need for our services. Our capacity is 50. We are currently beyond capacity. and we have a wait list of 12 children. 2/3 of the children that are in this program are kindergarten through second grade. And the reason for that is they aren't getting pre-K. And we're seeing the effects of this. So it's become a very difficult circumstance with us, particularly with kindergartners, because there is no prerequisite for getting into kindergarten. You have children who have attended any type of daycare or preschool that come in and they know their letters, they know their numbers, and then you have these other children who come in who have never held a pencil, have 0 letter recognition, 0 number recognition, and we are the ones who are trying to rectify that. We are doing our best. We are doing as much as we possibly can. But I feel like there is something that can be done in the means of a pre-K at Highland School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you for what you do. Chip Reeves.
You had to depart, sir, sorry.
Pardon?
You had to leave, I'm sorry.
Jim Destry. Correct me on that pronunciation, please.
Jim, this way.
Did I get it right, Jim? Destry?
Osterley.
Osterley, okay.
That's my way of pronouncing it, it's not.
How'd your mama do it?
I echo everything that my other fellow Highlanders have said. I agree with 100%. I'm not trained in public speaking. I'm trained as an accountant. I was a CPA at one time. I transitioned into another type of accounting because I joined a different firm, and that was more forensic accounting. Originally, I wanted to focus on how the numbers work. Well, I don't have the information. I have some information from the local newspapers, and as the newspapers have said, the average assessment in Macon County, I believe, has increased 58%. I think the people of Franklin should be happy. Theirs have only increased about 35%, because the average up in Highland is probably around 70. But I don't want to talk about that because I don't have all the facts. One thing that completely caught me by surprise, and I feel as though I was ambushed, I attended a meeting at the end of November, and there was never any doubt in my mind, several people that are in this room tonight were at that meeting, that the Highlands project was a go. There was never a negative comment made at that meeting. We have able people handling it. I never worried about it. I didn't think I could spend my time better spent in other places, but I am going to dig into it more now. My final comment would be is that Highlands is the only school in Macon County that doesn't have a pre-K program.
Nalahala. East Franklin, Nalahala, some of them don't. Just
They
2
don't?
schools in Macon County.
Well, we do, but our pre-K and that type of care is handled by private funding. And pretty substantial private funding. Bonnie Potts represents part of it. There's some other parts too, quite a few other parts. As was mentioned, we have between 60 and 70 people on the waiting list. We don't have the resources to handle them. One, we don't have the building space. We don't have the funding. Those people need help too. I mean, young kids, they've got to get started. This is a tough world to live in right now, and they need all the help they can get. If they don't get it, by the time they get to high school, they're going to be in real trouble. This project is really essential, and all I can say is that we find a way to restore funding to this project. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
A lot of comments on this pre-K, and trust me, I've been doing a lot of work on this pre-K in the Tree Meeting. My wife is originally from Highlands. My oldest son will soon be 36 years old. My youngest son will be 22. I've lived it, everything else. I understand because I lived through the problems without childcare. Miss Gordon's, all three of my boys went through Miss Gordon's school, okay?
That's
But
called
they-
the Gordon Center.
That's correct. But Miss Gordon was, so. There are a lot of concerns that I don't think that we as Highlanders are looking at with this pre-K. And I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. The biggest thing this board is, we have to find funding to do this. But I've offered to have a roundtable discussion with as many people in Highlands that want to come. I met with the mayor the other day. We had a great meeting, 45 minutes worth. The one thing that I will put out there, Highlands is a seasonal town, correct?
That's true.
Okay?
That's why the
How
assessed
many-
valuation is so high.
Okay. How many businesses in Highlands close with the school schedule? With the school schedule. June, July, August, that's when businesses need all their employees. To me, a pre-K is a portion of the needs for Highlands. We call it Highlands Pre-K. To me, Highlands needs a daycare center that we can not run on the school system and the school schedule. So therefore, is the pre-K the 100%? Is that what Highlands needs? In my mind, we need to come up with a solution to this, the real problem. And so therefore, and I'm not gonna go on with this because I wanna have a sit-down meeting with every Highlander that wants to come to the meeting. We will talk about this. It will be an orderly meeting, but there are some concerns that I have of someone that grew up in Highlands. And I think these discussions will come out and we can come up with a solution to this problem.
Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because we hadn't heard it from you.
Oh, yeah, I've been
Well,
communicating.
there's been, again, I've learned things here tonight I never knew before. And there needs to be the type of discussion that you're talking about. The mayor's a great advocate, he's very articulate.
Absolutely.
However, there's a lot of other people that are well-spoken as well, and maybe have more intimate knowledge of the topic, certainly than I do. I never had a reason to, because I thought it was in great hands.
I have a lot of information on the pre-K as a whole in Highlands and everything else, and I will present this at a meeting with the citizens of Highlands, and we'll talk about this. This is my board right here. I have
when
learned
and where
this.
will we have that meeting? We'd love, you
Oh,
schedule it and we'll show up.
absolutely. I promise you
Please
that we're
get it
gonna
on the
have that
agenda.
meeting.
Please get it in the newspaper for us, because we're ready to have the meeting.
Okay.
And we need to have that meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree
Fair enough.
100%.
Fair enough. Sooner than later.
We're gonna have it.
Mr. Sherrill, please, the moment.
Yes.
I'm one of your constituents.
Yes,
I've been
sir.
a full-time resident of the county since 2007.
Yes.
I was in the military many decades ago. Communication is the number one thing that's of importance in whatever type of business or entity you're in. You've just indicated that you want to communicate. I realize that you're newly elected, but you need to communicate. You know, my wife and I live in your district. So communicating, in the way I look at it, I'm a former Georgia resident, but you're our representative, okay? So please, I want to do what Derek says, communicate with us, not once, not twice, but many times. And also, I understand we had a presentation, I think the commission chairman was there November 29th. There's a statute about broadcasting and communication and publicizing what we used to call in Georgia special local option sales tax, SPLOS. And the 1/4% sales in tax was voted down by the residents and voters of our county because they didn't know what the heck it was for. So I think it's up to the commissioners to go to their districts and communicate, not once, not twice, and I hope you can get it on the, I don't know how it works because I'm not a politician, how you get it on the ballot, maybe in November, to explain to the taxpayers, like my wife and I, that the 1/4% is going to be somehow dedicated to the school. And I read in the paper a couple of weeks ago, it was estimated to be $2 million a year, estimated, which could be applied to the cost of the school. But you gotta communicate to people, and in Georgia, it was a set aside. It didn't get mixed in with the general funds. And there may be statutory reasons in North Carolina you can't do that, but you gotta communicate this whole thing. And I, you know, I'm a Highlander, carpetbagger from Atlanta, but I've been here since '07. And you know, I support what you're doing. I support the school. We need a new school, but we need support in Highlands for what we're doing with pre-K. And the money to renovate the classrooms that's already been spoken to has been set aside with grants. I've been retired from finance for 20 years, but I understand finance. If it's a grant, why can't you spend it? Thank you for your
I
time.
would just like to say, anyone that has sent me an email, anybody that's called my phone, I have talked to them. I've not avoided anyone.
It didn't say that. I didn't
And so
imply that.
communications, you know, I'm communicating with a lot of people. So I want facts before I have a meeting with anyone, okay? And that's what
Okay.
I've been doing, is I have been retrieving facts on this issue, and I've had many
Thank you, sir.
meetings at Highland School.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I want to invite you personally to come to Rotary Club as many times as you would like to and speak to us about updates as you move forward. Thank you, sir,
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you, Mr. Foster.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sir.
All right, moving on to the agenda. Additions to agenda? Anybody?
Chairman, I'd like to add, Parks and Rec discussion.
Seven. Mr. Manager.
We can do it under new business, item 11F.
11F.
That would be Parks and Rec discussion. This please.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if we could, under the consent agenda, if the board would consider declaring the service weapon for Bill Edwards as he has retired from the Sheriff's Department. If you would consider declaring that surplus and in turn offering that to Mr. Edwards for $1. And under appointments, as opposed to 2 seats.
That would be consent agenda 12E, or is it a special, do we need to mention?
12E would be great, yes, thank you. And under appointments, there will be 3 seats for consideration on the EDC, not just 2. And I have another application for you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Adjustments to and approval of the agenda. Any adjustments to them?
Have a motion to approve the agenda?
Have a motion and a second, all in discussion, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Reports and presentations. Update on Macon County Cooperative Extension Activities. Christine Breedenkamp, Director.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, welcome.
So I'm Christy Breedenkamp, the Macon County Extension Director, and behind me is most of the staff. And we just wanted to come before you and thank you for supporting us. We have a long-standing relationship with Macon County government and NC State University. And we just wanted to thank you for previous support and current support, both county officials and our new county commissioners. We wanted to meet you. So we wanted to share just the tip of the iceberg a little bit of what we do in extensions. So each of my staff is going to share about 1 minute, maybe 2, and just a little bit about their program. I'm very proud of these guys. We work really hard. They love to serve, and they're exceptional people, and we work well together. So I'm very proud of them, and I hope you guys are too. And I just, each of them are going to share a little bit now about our programs and 4-H and other programs too.
I'm Debbie, I'm the administrative assistant. I'm actually gonna share for Tamara Talley, our 4-H agent, because she is in Raleigh tonight, doing training. So, I'm gonna share, Macon County has 9 clubs with 136 youth enrolled in these clubs, 15 volunteer club leaders. The clubs are Macon Hoof Prints, which is a horse club. We have 2 cooking clubs, Top Chef and Budding Chefs, Macon Mountain Goats, Macon Lands. We have 2 shooting sports, Archers and Macon Sharpshooters. Sassy Stitchers is our sewing club, and Macon Beekeepers is our beekeeping club. Our beekeeping club actually produced honey the past 2 years and have sold for fundraisers, so we are all hands-on learning and doing clubs. The newest group, it's not a club yet, the newest group that Tamara has is called WEP, which is Wildlife Habitat Education Program. They meet twice a month at the Environmental Resource Center. WEP is a group that explores different species of wildlife and how they work with their habitat to survive. In February, the kids made bluebird houses and learned to ID trees at the Environmental Center by the tree bark. So just by these couple of examples I've given, you can see that 4-H is learning by doing, and that's what 4-H stands for. If I can just give you a little highlight. Tamara wanted to have some pictures to see some visuals. I'm done.
Here's Andy. Andy got her picture of the goat.
Hello, my name is Kim Terrell. I think most of you know me. I'm the Family Consumer Science Agent at the Extension Office, and that's just a long term for home economics. And my background is in nutrition and dietetics, and I teach a lot of the nutrition classes, canning classes, food preservation. I do a lot with the school system. I'm currently teaching some basic cooking skills with the EC class at the high school. And I've also done some classes with the foods and nutrition class, child development, and in April I will be teaching some of the STEM students how to can strawberry jam. So we do some fun stuff. I also am working, and Joe and I are working on a garden grant for Macon Middle School. They have a new ag teacher. So I have obtained some funding for a garden, a raised bed garden, and so we'll be teaching them how to grow their own food. So, because you would be pretty amazed when I go in to teach children about nutrition, they have no idea where their food comes from. They think they just go to the grocery store. I currently work also with the Senior Center. I do 2 classes a week with a conditioning and balance class. Once a month I go there and do a nutrition class with them, and I'm getting ready to start a med instead of meds class with the Senior Center, which is teaching about the Mediterranean diet. And I also do classes with our Head Start program at MPP, and I'm currently doing 2 classes a week there. And also Serve Safe. If you are familiar with that, that is the certification that restaurants and the food service industry must have. The person in charge must be Serve Safe certified, so it is a food safety certification. And I recently did a class in Highlands with the Old Edwards Inn. I had about 20 students, and this Thursday I have about 18 people signed up to do another class. So that's very important for our area because I'm the only person that teaches that class. Otherwise, they would have to drive to Atlanta or Asheville to take that class. Future classes, so just look on our website. I put articles in the newspaper and our social media pages. I'll be doing canning classes because it'll be time to start canning, and those classes really filled up quickly last year. I did water bath and pressure canning classes at our Cowie School, and I'll be doing some at the Extension Office, and also some diabetes education classes that I'm planning. So, thank you.
Busy. Thank you.
Hello, I'm brand new. My name is Pam Archambault, and I just started November 1st. I have a unique split position with the Extension Office where I'm half 4-H program assistant alongside our seasoned agent, Tamara Talley, couldn't be here, as well as our wonderful volunteers. And then the other half is my position serves the Federal Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, goes by the acronym FNAP. So that is to reach school-age children and teach them the basics of nutrition and fitness. So your food groups, how to eat healthy, all the good choices that it makes. You teach them basic cooking skills. So my hands are full, so kind of half with Kim and half with Tamara. So it's nice to meet you. I'm very happy to be here in this capacity, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Best for last.
Well, I appreciate the compliment there, Paul.
Welcome, Joe.
Joe Deal, livestock agent. My responsibilities are livestock, forage and pasture crops, pesticide education, honeybees, and farm ponds. I'm going to just share a couple of programs that I'm pretty proud of and some accomplishments that we have. June 1st will be 8 years since I joined Extension, and when I was hired on, Board of Commissioners said, one thing we want you to do is grow the steer program back in Macon County. And in 2015, we had one steer shown at the Macon County Fair. And for some of y'all who've grown up and were accustomed to the Macon County Fair, and there being sometimes 25 or 30 steers at that fair, one was just unacceptable. And so we have grown that program, 8 to 12 steers a year. So that's not very many. Well, if you compare that to the Mountain State Fair, last year I believe we had 8 steers in the Macon County Fair. Mountain State Fair had 4. 3 of those were from Macon County. And so there's a couple of reasons for that. A steer program now is not a money maker. And so it's a financial burden, but one of the programs we have, our steer program, we actually provide a steer for a kid that wants to raise that project for a year. And so that's going good, but overall our total youth livestock program in the county, last year we had over 100 youth show livestock at our county fair. And so right now we're ramping up for 2023. We've got folks already signed up for our land program. We'll be getting steer calves later this summer. We've got a lot of workshops planned for this summer, not only from Macon County, but we branched out and invited youth from some of our neighboring counties who do not have a program like we do. They're joining up with us to reach out and get more kids involved. And so that's a good thing, so I'm awful proud of that. The other thing is on the agronomy side, on the livestock side for adults, for 2 years I've done a hay contest. And so in Macon County, one of the big things I push is soil sampling. Compared to other counties over the last 3 years on our hay ground, if you go by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture statistics, we're averaging on our hay and pasture crops about 1 soil sample per 10 acres. Most of our other counties are 1 soil sample per 40 acres or per acre. So our producers they've bought into the program, they're doing a really good job. And the hay contest, last year I took samples from 21 different producers. We had 36 hay samples. We use a index called the Relative Forage Quality Index that ranks those samples, gives us a numeric value. We send the hay samples off to the state lab. It brings us back all the breakdown of it. I've got an equation about this long that I plug the numbers into, and that spits us out a nice number. We can compare hay lots between all different producers. And so that was nice to look at Macon County, but I want to know, how do we compare to other folks? So there's not really a great way to do that with other counties, because not every county has a program like this, but the Southeastern Hay Contest is put on at the Moultrie Southeast Ag Expo in Moultrie, Georgia in October. And so 13 states can participate in that. So I compared our Macon County hay to the hay samples that were submitted to that contest. There were 56 entrants into that one. For Macon County, our average Relative Forage Quality Index was 137. The average for the Southeast Hay Contest was 117. So we were 20 points higher. The winner in the cool season perennial grass category at the Southeast Hay Contest was 152. The winner of our Macon County Hay Contest was a 166. We actually had 4 samples that would have won the Southeast Hay Contest. For cool season perennial grasses, premium hay would be a 140 RFQ or above. And so as a county, we nearly average premium hay. So I'm super proud of what our producers are doing. Hopefully, we're gonna have some producers this coming year actually enter into that Southeast Hay contest, and maybe this time next year, we can come back and say, hey, we had a hay contest winner from the southeastern states. But our producers are doing really good. They bought in to what the Kool-Aid I've been selling them, and it's starting to show on that. And especially this year with the hay quality being up, quantity was down, and so having good quality has actually helped our livestock in the county. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So as you can see, these guys are workhorses, don't you think? Right, I think so. I want to share just a little bit of some of the programs that I do. So I do the community development, working with those clubs. And so as you guys know, as people move into Macon County, they're trying to figure out many different issues. And so our 6 community clubs, they reach out to these new individuals and they try to welcome them and steer them in the right direction. And so I work with the officers of each of these community clubs, and they try to strategize each year on how learning tips from one another in each of the clubs and how they can improve, how they can do beautification in their neighborhoods and so on, and raise money. Other things that I do are the home horticulture and the commercial horticulture, and so that's quite a bit. So both Joe and I, a lot of people we have drop-ins, we do a lot of farm visits and home visits, and so we're working with the individuals a lot one-on-one. And I just want to highlight a couple programs. I call it Growing in the Mountain series. And so I had a strawberry growers, strawberry production for homeowners, and I had about 43 people attend that. I had a blueberry production workshop, and about 61 people attended that. And I had a raspberry, blackberry production, and about 45 people attended that. And I could keep going on, but right now, this year, there's just a lot of people who are very interested in learning how to grow things, because I think they're worried about the economy and state of the world and things like that. So that's just a little bit of flavor. In the commercial horticulture, we have a landscape contractors class. We did growing Christmas trees for new beginners, and the list goes on and on, but it's quite interesting to really, we just love to serve the community, and there's a lot of interest, and we welcome any of you guys to stop on by the office or give us a call. We'd love to see you anytime. So thank you for your time. I know it's precious and a long evening, so we're very grateful again to be before you and allow us to speak.
Thank y'all. One question, what's this snap gonna do to blueberries?
Excuse me?
What's this cold snap gonna do to blueberry bushes?
Depends on the state of the blueberry, if they're high bush or rabbit eye, and if they've already been flowering or not, but it'll probably hurt them pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah, I'm afraid so. Good. Thank y'all for what you do, it's very important.
Thank you.
Progress report on Georgia Road Scale Veterinary Fiber Infrastructure Project. Matt, you'll introduce yourself. You're with Boston West, I presume.
Yes, sir, I am.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. That is correct. I am Matt Sanger. On behalf of Boston West, we appreciate the opportunity to present this update. Boston West's mission is to deliver robust telecommunication service and provide career opportunities. It's public-private partnerships like this that enable us to deliver on that mission. And just as a side note, 40% of Boston West staff are Macon County residents. This has been a bootstrap project for us from the beginning. We've invested right along with Macon County on this project. I'm going to provide some high-level numbers, and this is going to be a quick update. But this particular project was done in phases. We extended our core fiber optic network down Georgia Road, down to Otto, and then up to Scaly Mountain. Phase 1 is complete. We also established what's called a point of presence, and this is where we put the electronics. This place, the point of presence, was established behind the Otto Community Center and gives us the ability to offer up to 400 gigs of bandwidth to this community. So there's plenty of capacity. Where we stand now, phase 2 is what I call building the laterals serving the businesses and residents along this route. Where we stand now, 253 connections are in progress. These are signed contracts. And this is a combination of residential and business accounts. 116 connections are pending. That's just where we're in the process of negotiating contracts. And we've contacted an additional 199, which we've categorized those as just prospects. So that's a potential, well, in addition to the prospects, that's 568 projected connections in phase 1 and 2. Our phase 3 part of this project is not only to extend these fiber laterals, but also extend our fixed wireless side of the business. So we're strategically putting towers to extend our internet reach. And in some cases, it's just not cost effective or feasible to build out fiber infrastructure. But on this particular route, we're offering speeds up to 1 gig by 1 gig. We're also offering some advanced voice services and advanced network support services as well. So we consider this project a huge success and want to, again, thank Macon County. And we hope to work on other projects in the future. I will say we finished our response to the Nantahala RFP, and that response should be in. If it's not in, it'll be in by the due date. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions. But again, thank you for the opportunity.
Matt, I appreciate all the work you've done, along with Jeff Lee. And you've been an excellent asset to us. And just want to say thank you for what you're going to be doing down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Old business. The skate park project update. Amy Owens, town manager, town of Franklin.
Good evening, Chairman Higdon and Commissioners. Thank you for having me this evening. Just wanted to give you a quick update about the skate park. Had a meeting with Manager Rowland and Commissioner Antoine last week to talk about some potential projects that we have going on. Just to give you an update, the skate park original cost was $294,750. Town staff is going to take care of all the grading for that particular project, so that reduced the cost down to $262,250. To this point, we have been able to, through various fundraising activities and the donation from the county previously, the amount that's been received is $101,674.74. That leaves a remaining balance after a $50,000 grant that we've received from the SCIF grant through Southwestern Commission. $110,575.26 to complete the project as it was quoted to us. We did actually meet on site yesterday with the representative, Andy Duck, and his team from Artisan Skate Parks. They are doing the renovations to the skate park in Asheville currently, and we are next on their list. They're not going back to Kitty Hawk before they come over here to us. So staff will start actually doing that grading when the weather breaks and allows us to do so. But we'll have that grading done by the first week in May so that the project can actually start either late May or early June. So they've got a 120-day process on that in the contract. So by late summer, we will actually have a skate park for individuals to utilize. Previously, there had been some discussion and requests from the skate community to the Board of County Commissioners related to potentially providing an additional $50,000 toward the project. That was never formalized, and we never came as the town to make that request. So that's part of what I would like to do this evening, is to make that request. And so that we can show the partnership that we all have for this particular project, it would be a contribution from the county commissioners, a contribution from the town, and we would still hope that the skate community would continue their fundraising efforts as they have been doing in the past. This was also our initial partnership with the county. I will tell you that the Almond Drive project where we needed sewer line access, and then we had the memorandum of understanding in place to do some greenway expansion. We have partnered with the Bartram Trail Conservancy, and they are gonna actually take care of doing the natural trail for this particular season, so that it allows us to get grant funds, hopefully, so that we can pave that greenway extension and then connect that out at Almond Drive. So that is in process. You will see dirt being moved if you go out to the pool area. There's a lot of dirt being moved by our guys right now. So Seth Adams has been great to work with. Commissioner Antoine is our liaison, has been great to work with. Of course, Manager Rowland, we've always been able to do great things with. So the request is this evening that you, as you're considering your budget for the upcoming year, consider a $50,000 donation toward that project.
Great presentation. Gentlemen?
So I think it's awesome that we're getting to partner with you guys on this particular project. And I think these kids have done a phenomenal job with raising, what they raised, 35,000?
They've raised right at 39,000.
39,000. I'd like to make a motion or a suggestion, rather to the board, if you guys would consider us funding the remaining balance of 110,575, and just get these kids a skate park and let's get them going this way.
Is that the form of the motion?
Yes, sir.
For the motion, we have a second? Second. All right, open for discussion.
With the funding source being general fund balance.
What access do we have to funds? Any contingency?
We have $80,908 in contingency. Yeah, and then or you could just appropriate from fund balance or a combination of the two.
Great. All fund balance? I mean, it's.
It's all the same pot.
It's all the same pot of money.
Well, how confident are you that the estimates you received are current, and we're not gonna have to have, additional funds, as the project?
We signed the contract, it's a not to exceed the 262.
Is there a contingency in that contract?
There's a 10% contingency. And we actually found out, because we happen to have some rebar laying around, that that's gonna actually reduce the cost, because they're gonna use the rebar that we had on site for another project.
So the motion that you made is for the 110 or the
Yes.
50,000 that?
The 110.
To fund the remaining.
To fund the remaining balance of that for these kids.
Okay, but the town is gonna commit 50,000. Why would we commit 110?
Well, you've done the land,
Mhm.
you've done the grading, and is there a cash?
And we did the design. There's also there's more things on the apron, like the benches that would have to be put in. This is just for the construction of the skate park itself. So, and as an update, if you don't mind for just a moment, we are doing the recreation planning for the Whitmire property. We did have a public meeting on February the 23rd. We had over 125 citizens that came and participated in that, as well as over 500 individuals who responded to the survey that was online. Part of what we have heard loud and clear from the community is that an all-abilities playground is necessary for Macon County, and that is one of the priorities that we have in that plan. McGill and Associates is our engineer that we're using for that. They will have another public meeting once they have some different renderings available and let the public weigh in on that. So we will be hopefully partnering with you again to apply for a part of grant, not this May 1st, but next May 1st, when we have all of those documents in place, so that it can be a very large project that everybody can benefit from in Macon County. It won't be the same thing that everybody else has, and individuals who need those specific implements to be able to utilize them so that their children can play when their brothers and sisters play, so that they don't have to go to Waynesville, they don't have to go to Georgia, they don't have to go other places. All of that would be included in that, as well as restrooms, picnic shelter. So it would be a big area close by that everybody could utilize.
Well, I'm all about the skate park. I think it's way past due, but I'm sort of confused because to me, she was asking us for $50,000.
Here's the way I see it. She's asking for a $50,000 contribution, and then she's gonna go back to them and ask them to raise the remaining funds. Mr. Antoine is suggesting that quit making kids big, and, you know, they've already shown $39,000 in a good faith effort. So I think that's, not to persuade you, that's what we have on the table. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
So realistically, she's asking for $110,000.
She's only asking for 50.
She only,
Right.
she proposed 50,000.
Okay, okay.
But the remaining balance was gonna go on the kids, we continue raising that money.
It was 10,000.
Say again?
It was 10,000.
10,000.
That's what it says here.
10,575.
So the
You did
town,
50, the town would
it
do
says
50,
here,
and then they would do.
the town is budgeting 50,000, and they're asking the county to budget 50,000, and then that would leave a remaining balance of $10,575, would continue to be donations driven by SK 828 and the skate community. So to me, the partnership is the town is asking for 50% from the county. The town's gonna put it in, which would leave $10,000 to raise for the funds. So that's where I'm saying that I'm confused. The town, what I'm reading here, the town's not asking us for $110,000. The town's asking us for $50,000.
How much have you guys put into this so far?
We put about 160 with the final 50,000 that we have budgeted for the next year.
About 160? How much have we put into this so far?
35 at this point.
35. I just think it's
So
fair.
I think if I may, and clarify Mr. Sherrill's point, if it was something that you wish to budget to eliminate the fundraising from the skate community, the total would be 60,575. 26. Is that's a fair assumption?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that's corrected in the motion?
Yeah.
Comment to that?
Make it-
Danny would have to.
Lynn?
Yeah.
So right
Can we make it a round number, because we don't budget in cents?
Yes.
$60,576.
576.
If you're gonna do the
Okay,
50,000 plus the 10,575 rounded up.
I'm making a motion for 16,576, right? And then you guys pick up the rest and that'll cover the total,
Yes, sir.
correct?
From
Yes.
fund balance, from general fund balance.
Correct. Okay.
And my comment is simply this: I sat on the board, and I did, and Josh, we've been beating this for 2-3 years. Had those kids, we prayed them in here, they're begging for this. Then we're gonna build a dog park without any discussion for $125 million. Let's build this skate park, get it over with, and give these kids something to do and go on to the next thing like an ADA playground Danny's adamant about. So I'm ready to roll on this. Any other comments? Any comments? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Amy. Thank you. Looking forward to new business. Discussion, consideration of memorandum of agreement. Jennifer Turner Lynn, she's Assistant Director of Reach in Macon County.
Hello.
Welcome, Jennifer.
I know most of you. My name is Jennifer Turner Lynn. I'm the Assistant Director with Reach in Macon County, and Andrea Anderson, our Executive Director, sends her regards. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here tonight. And hopefully most of you know what we do, but in case you don't, we are a 501c3 nonprofit that provides services to domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking victims and survivors. I think that probably in general, as far as our general community is concerned, including government, you probably hear a lot of talk about domestic violence and sexual assault just in general terms, and understanding that those are prevalent in our community, in any community. Probably what we don't talk a whole lot about is human trafficking. And a lot of times, I'm reminded of a time I did a fair display when I first started working at REACH for the senior services fair that they did, and I will never forget. I had an older lady come to my booth, and she was very appreciative and just really complimentary of all of the work, but she looked me dead in the face and she goes, "Honey, we live in an amazing community, and that kind of stuff just doesn't happen here." And I think for me, even though that was so long ago, it has stuck with me. And so sometimes we need to remind people that these issues do happen in Macon County. And I think human trafficking is a little bit harder for folks to actually grasp. I think in general, because we tend to think, like maybe you watch 2020, Dateline, and what you probably often think of trafficking is where we're bringing people from third world countries here and enslaving them. And my guess is that in our community, we look around and we're like, oh, we don't really see that happening. And while I would say that that does happen here, the most prevalent form of trafficking in our community is actually familial trafficking. And so for those of you who probably aren't familiar with that term, it is basically the trafficking of individuals in exchange for some type of third-party service or subsidy. So in our case in Macon County, what we often see is someone is going to sell someone for sex in exchange for rent, in exchange for a substance. I'm gonna sell my daughter so that I can pay my utility bills. That's the kind of trafficking that we see most often in our community. And I think that most folks would probably just be shocked to know that that is such a common factor. And certainly there's a lot of things that influence that. I don't think anybody here would be able to, argue that right now, the cost of finding affordable housing, maintaining affordable housing, poverty, generational poverty, all of those things impact human trafficking, and in particular, they impact human sex trafficking. And so just that you do know, the big national statistics are great, but actually what I care about is local numbers, so that you have a grasp on the number of people that we're serving. So for 2021, which would be our fiscal year, so June to July, for 21 to 22, we served 38 trafficking individuals in Macon County. In total for our services, we served about 500 individuals for domestic violence, sexual assault, and that includes trafficking. And we provided services to over 100 individuals for shelter, totaling about 3,200 nights of shelter during that single time period. And so the MOA that is in your packet, actually, for your consideration, is basically just saying that you all recognize as a commission and also as a board of government and as community members, recognize that trafficking exists within our community, that you recognize that there is an entity in Macon County that can actually support and provide those services for human trafficking survivors, and that obviously if you come into contact with human trafficking victims, that you would send them our way. What we hope to be able to do with this MOA is actually there are several pots of state, federal pass-through funding, and even foundation-based funding that we would be eligible to receive. And certainly with this particular MOA signed by commissioners will enhance our grant application process as well, which could actually bring additional funding into Macon County specific for human trafficking victims and survivors in those services. And I am glad to answer any questions that you might have, even if it's about domestic violence or sexual assault. It's not always a fun topic, especially after the skate park. I feel like a little bit of a bummer. Like, we have this great skate park coming in. I'm up here talking about violence in our community. But I am glad to answer any questions you might have.
Are you busy?
Do what?
Are you busy with this issue?
So we're busy, we're busy, we're just busy. We're busy, everybody always asks me like, actually my provider today was like, what's your stress level? And I was like, 5,000, is that a number? Like it's busy, it's hectic. I don't know how many of you know about the flood that actually happened at our shelter on Christmas Eve. But our shelter did flood on Christmas Eve, and our staff, family, and children all came out on Christmas Eve to help push water out and relocate families. We are still not completed. Actually, we haven't started on the repairs. We hope to be back into the shelter I would say they, hopefully. And so that certainly has added a difficult element. We do have, our shelter in particular is a amazing resource for trafficking victims in particular, and not just trafficking victims from our community. We have trafficking victims who also come here from other states and from other regions, because we're one of the only shelters, first of all, that's as ADA accessible and compliant. We are the most ADA accessible shelter in our state. And we're one of the few shelters that has private bathrooms for rooms. So most shelters, as you can imagine, you're sharing a bathroom with a lot of people that you don't know. And somebody who's been sexually assaulted or has been trafficked as a sex victim, that is just simply a very difficult and complicated thing. And so having that certainly helps add to their process of their recovery. So that was a long answer to your very easy question. Yes, we're busy. We're busy.
Consideration of memorandum MOA, within our packet, I think most of us have read it, hopefully. It's approved by legal counsel, I presume.
Make a motion to accept it as presented.
Second.
Have a motion, second on the floor, further discussion.
I want to say thank you, Jennifer, working with the Interact, Franklin High School, with this project, and work with Rotary. As part of our project there this year, I want to say what you've done within the community and with the young people, making them aware of this situation. I want to say thank you.
You're welcome, and certainly if anyone is a part of civic or other organizational groups, especially working with youth, we would be glad to come and speak with them specific to sextortion, which falls under the umbrella of human trafficking, but is a really big issue with our teens. I mean, I coached cheerleading for, 20 years, a really long time. And in some ways I'm glad I'm not coaching now, because obviously just the demands related to social media and their access to youth through sextortion, specifically middle school and high school youth, is crazy, and it's scary. And so we really need to provide education for them, and even young boys who oftentimes can be sextorted specifically through gaming systems. And so it's just not an area that we typically think about. We usually think about sextortion primarily with minor girls, but in general, young boys are significantly being targeted through gaming systems for sextortion. So if you have civic groups, we're glad to provide education about that as well. So, all right. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to say, thanks for what you guys do. Those numbers they're staggering, and I'm guilty of being naive myself. But I know you don't do it for the money, and Andy and a bunch of, so thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We definitely have a passion for what we do, and we appreciate your support. And hopefully this can bring some extra money to Macon County as well as just an added benefit. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
A motion, second on the floor. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Resolution in recognition of Macon County Crawford Center volunteers. Patrick Betancourt. Welcome, Patrick.
Hey, thank you. Send regrets from Jennifer Hallfield, who's not able to join us tonight. She is in Charlotte or Hawaii. I can't remember. She travels a lot. I think it's Charlotte. Just wanted to come before you tonight and ask for a resolution in recognition of volunteers serving Macon County Crawford Senior Center. In calendar year 2022, volunteers to the Crawford Senior Center donated 3,564 hours through this center. A national nonprofit coalition, independent sector, you may have heard of it, suggests one volunteer hour is valued at $29.95. Even if we value it half that amount, the volunteer hours for calendar year 2022 would be estimated to be worth $58,000. Crawford Center volunteers support our seniors in a multitude of areas, including home-delivered meals, understanding senior health insurance information, and delivering activities and programs to help keep our seniors young. So let me give you some volunteer areas by the numbers. For SHIP, or Senior Health Insurance Information Program, we had 4 volunteers who contributed 475 hours, counseling 739 individuals on the complexities of Medicare. One SHIP counselor even contributed 366 hours alone. For our senior activities, we have 2 volunteers providing 819 hours to activities participants, both in person and virtually. In fact, we even had one participant who took a class virtually all the way from Arizona. One activities volunteer contributed 370 hours alone. For our home delivered meals, despite losing over half of our volunteers to COVID, home delivered meal volunteers contributed 2,270 hours, delivering more than 10,000 meals in 2022. Our active volunteers range in age from 33 to 89 years young, with most volunteers being in their 70s and 80s, making them eligible for the services themselves. Many of the services delivered through our senior center would not be possible without the dedication, compassion, and determination of our volunteers. And with this, I would ask that the commissioners vote to adopt the resolution before you, recognizing April 17th through the 23rd, 2023 as Macon County Volunteer Week. Mr. Manager and Commissioners, you are all cordially invited to join Crawford Senior staff in recognizing and celebrating our volunteers at our Volunteer Appreciation Dinner, which will take place April 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. That'll work. Go ahead.
Patrick,
Yes, sir.
I want to say thank you for what your organization is doing for veterans. It saves a lot of mileage, some of the activities that they're trying to do at this senior citizen has been a great help to our veterans. And I want to say thank you to you and to the staff there.
Thank you, Mr. Shields.
Along with that, I'd like to make a motion that the board resolution recognizes the volunteers who serve at the Macon County Crawford Service Center.
Motion second, further discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand.
Patrick, appreciate you. I know what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. I will just point out real quickly that the program that you're talking about is a Tai Chi program specifically designed for veterans. We're nationally accredited in that area, and so what Mr. Shields is talking about is the only other nationally accredited community-based organization to deliver that evidence-based program is all the way in Asheville. So the veterans who might be able to take advantage of that here in Macon County can come to the senior center and take advantage of that. Helps treat PTSD, helps to relieve stress. It's a great nationally recognized program. Thank you.
Thank you. Consideration of bid award for Macon County Transit Facility expansion. Darlene Asher with the transit authority.
Good evening. In your bid pack, or in your packet, you have the bid that came in from Al Construction. I'm here to ask consideration that you award that bid to Al Construction.
Gentlemen?
How many bids came in on this project? I'm sorry. We struggled on that, didn't we?
We put it out for bid 3 times. We put it out on August the 2nd, received no bids. Again on August 18th and received no bids. We got 1 bid on February 14th.
Were there any kind of cost estimates that you put out by the state, you know, maybe by the engineer? of
The only cost
project?
estimates were done by Jack.
By who?
By Jack.
And what were they?
He did one in 20 that came out to about a 515.
Just for a history on this, we did have one bid received February 14th, 2023 from Al Construction, which is the bid Darlene's referring to. This project, we bid it, February 14th was the 3rd time this project's been put out to bid. The first 2 times that we bid this project out, we did not receive a bid. And so this 3rd time, we did receive a bid from Al Construction. Al Construction has also submitted a bid for and got the project for the awning construction as well out there, the total $969,000 of total project cost. This is offset by $775,200 in revenue from the NCDOT. The county is responsible for a 20% match. $193,800 would be what the county is responsible for out of this $969,000 project. So with that being said, we do have in the fiscal year 23 budget an amount that has already been budgeted sufficient to cover this in the amount of $1,076,959. That is what has been budgeted for this construction project moving forward. So those are just some details surrounding this project. It's been very hard to get bids for this project, but we finally did receive those bids, and it is within the funds that we have set aside in the fiscal year 23 budget.
Also, was this a minority group we're working here with? I mean, Al?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're doing the awning.
That's a good thing. With the minority pieces.
Yeah, I think that's a requirement for minority participation, is a requirement for
Yes, that's correct.
all bids.
With this type of bid, it's federal money involved and state money, so yes, we had to ensure, solicit a minority women business-owned participation.
What was that say?
$1,076,959.
Was,
We're gonna pay the 20%.
Yes.
Yes.
Was there not another bid that came in late for this project? So,
Accept it,
right,
unfortunately, per general statutes.
but do you not, does that not warrant putting this thing back out for bid?
It's not really a justifiable reason to reject it, just because the second bidder was late.
In the state, since I'm working under a federal grant, everything goes through the state. And I've already submitted it to them, and they gave their amens and graces on this price. I was surprised, but they did.
So why was Jack $200,000?
That was in 2020.
Oh, 2020, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was 3 years ago.
Well, gentlemen, it sounds like the procedures were followed. The bidding process was, we may not agree with it. It is what it is. So after hearing Colleen's presentation, minor discussion, we'll open the floor. Pleasure of the board.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that the bid to expand the transit facility at 36,000 Panel Lane, that we enter into a contract with Al Construction in the amount of, that's going to be the.
$715,000
$715,000.
is the amount of the contract. That's all you
Of the total contract. Well, of the contract, then we only have to do what, say, 1%?
20%, but the contract will be 715, so that's what your motion would be contain.
Okay. I'd like to put that as a motion.
All right, gentlemen, a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
A motion and a second. Further discussion?
I really don't like it, especially hearing the fact that we have other bids come in. I do think the economy is in somewhat of a downturn, and I do anticipate other bids. But I feel like I've talked about the government kicking cans, and here we are kicking the can. If Jack gave an estimate in 2020, here we are in 23. The difference of the county's liability, in my opinion, 20% of a difference of maybe $100,000 is somewhat nominal. I do understand it's tax dollars, but
Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Darlene. Consideration of resolution adopting a code of ethics for the Board of Commissioners, legal counsel, Mr. Ed Ridenhour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While Mr. Ridenhour is
Sure.
getting ready, I'd like to just like to reiterate that in addition to the 2010 Code of Ethics that is currently in place for this board, we also have the ethical considerations that govern this board that are included in our rules of procedure, which we operate under. And each of you have completed your required ethics training, your individual certifications from the state of North Carolina. Ethically, this board is covered from top to bottom. Would like to take a moment, and I hate she's not here, to thank Ms. Aguilar for bringing the 2010 Code of Ethics to our attention. And I think that goes to show here tonight, I think this is local government at its finest. With people asking questions about the tax revaluation, have our tax administrator here able to clarify those things. Ms. Aguilar here, and she shared some concerns with us after our last meeting with our Human Resources Office concerning our Code of Ethics. We've been able to take Ms. Aguilar's comments or interaction with our Human Resources Department, and we've been able to what we feel make this 2010 Code of Ethics better. The Code of Ethics that you see here tonight, I instructed our county attorney, it's 8 pages, the one that was adopted in 2010. The one our county attorney has drafted is more streamlined, it's more condensed, it's about a page. And it goes back to just like with the committees, it doesn't hurt from time to time to go back and look through things and see what you're using and see what needs to be changed. And this interaction, the citizens of Macon County, not only are they consumers for the services that this organization provides, they're shareholders in this organization. And we listen to those shareholders. As I said, Abby's made that clear here tonight. And I think this is just another example of how that we took Ms. Aguilar's comments. And I would like to apologize because I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. I thought I was until I got married. But I found out I wasn't after that pretty quick. But nonetheless, we appreciate her, appreciate the time she's taken to work with us on this and bring some things to light. And in saying that, would ask this board to first consider entertaining a motion to rescind the current Code of Ethics that was adopted in 2010. And following that rescission, should it go forward, to adopt what I feel is a more streamlined, more condensed version that mirrors the requirements to the T that are set forth in 168-86 of the North Carolina General Statutes concerning this Code of Ethics. So with that being said, Mr. County Attorney, if you have anything to add.
That was excellent.
So,
the Code of Ethics is required by statute to have, and basically what it says is you have to follow the law. You've already taken the oath of office. We have to now adopt a policy because the statute says so. But you're already bound by law to follow the law and use your own, use the Code of Ethics that you're aware of. This just regurgitates what you already know. You've already taken your classes, and this says, yes, we're in compliance with this part, and we're going to continue to follow the law and use our best judgment and efforts on this, knowing the guidelines that those ethics provide.
We just say that now on the page instead of 8. Do we need 2 motions for this?
One's rescind, and then we have to adopt the next one.
So the first one will be
I make a motion we rescind 2010 ethics agreement, Code of Ethics.
Second.
Have a motion second, any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. And we'll entertain.
to adopt the newly revised Code of Ethics.
And real quick on that, I found 2 typos that the lawyer that typed that up made. They're on the front page, and I've given those to Tammy, so with the board's blessing, we'll just slip sheet that front page with those corrected. The first word was thing was spelled pain, and form was spelled from. So with that revision, and with acknowledge that Ms. Keiser will slip sheet those, fix those typos before it's published, or recorded, and yes, please, you're free to make that adoption.
What date?
Today's date.
I make a motion we adopt the newly amended Code of Ethics as presented by our county attorney.
Second.
second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Derek. We're not perfect on a lot of things, are we? A few things we're perfect on. Okay, consideration of budget amendment regarding the Boiler Chiller Unit at the Human Services Building. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item was going to be put into the fiscal year 24 maintenance items within the county budget. It does so happen that unfortunately it has become the situation with this chiller unit has become so urgent that we must act now on it. Our maintenance director and myself thought that we could get into the next budget, put it in that budget and let it go with the budget cycle. We're at a period now where it's down to about 25% capacity on this chiller unit. And our maintenance is having to go reset it about 4 times a day, so it's a strain on that maintenance staff. Right now, the chiller unit is 23 years old. It's been in the building since the building was built. The Human Services building is heated and cooled by a boiler chiller unit. That unit is hooked to about 6 different condensers throughout, or 6 air handlers throughout that building, with the lines for the cool water and the lines for the hot water. So it's an integral part. That's just how the system was designed. The boiler chiller unit is the only fit for that. We have received kind of an informal quote to get a price for that. It's going to be around $100,000. We did leave a room in the budget amendment at $110,000 to cover any fluctuations that might occur in that price. But basically what we're doing is asking this board to upfront the money now from fund balance so we can go ahead. There's a 36-week lead time on these. They have to build them when you order them. And with the situation deteriorating the way it has, we would like to go ahead and appropriate that money now, go ahead and get that order in now rather than waiting all the way until the next budget. It is that urgent. So with that being said, just keep in mind if we appropriate it now from fund balance, this $110,000, it's not going to be included in the budget anymore. So what would have been in the budget is now going to be paid for up front with this appropriation.
You said it was 36 weeks?
36 weeks, yes.
And this is one of those cases where it's a 25% efficiency. We may be on the tail end of replacement time for this.
And, you know, I think now would be a good time, to hit on our maintenance. We have a great, outstanding maintenance staff. And if there was a specialty of our maintenance, it's these heating and cooling units. We have 2 people especially in the maintenance department that are experts on these heating and cooling units. And you know, when they're coming and presenting this need, you know, I hate to do anything out of budget. And you know, so does the maintenance department. But this is just something that cannot go on anymore. Our maintenance department's efficient. We recently, a couple of years ago, replaced all of our light fixtures with LED light fixtures. And just going and preparing for this budget, looking at our electricity costs from year to year, you can see the fruits of that and those bills going down from year to year after we replace those lights. So this is just one thing that is going to lead, once we get it replaced, it's going to lead to increased efficiency in the Health and Human Services building, as well as, you know, just keeping up with our routine maintenance.
And that's top priority from that maintenance. So,
Is that the health department building?
Yes, sir.
You said you hate being out of budget, but I hate to have that building without climate control.
Oh, yeah, they'll have my head on pitchfork if it gets.
I don't think we have an option.
we don't have an option.
It is
100% important.
I'd like to make a motion then that, be a budget amendment regarding the purchase of the boiler chiller unit for the Human Service building. Would you say for 110 or?
Yes, sir.
Put the money in?
110.
110, do I need to specify what account it comes out of?
Just the budget amendment was in the agenda, it's coming out of fund balance.
Okay.
Gentlemen, heard a motion?
Second.
Have a second, further discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Clerk? Yes, ma'am.
Before we move on from that, it's not actually listed here, but it was in the packet. An additional action, if y'all would consider, since this is a 36-week lead time, we're gonna have to put this out to bid because it's over $90,000, it's in the formal range. However, if we only receive one bid, we're good, we can accept said bid, as long as we're happy with what they're proposing. But rather than wait until April 11th, which is our next regularly scheduled board meeting, to come back and have you award the bid, there is a provision in the general statute that if you consider, so the motion would be for the purchases of apparatus, supplies, materials, or equipment, the Macon County Board of Commissioners delegates to the county manager the authority to award contracts, reject bids, or re-advertise to receive bids on behalf of Macon County in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-129A. So if you would consider making that motion and approving it, then that will allow Derek, once we receive the bid, to go ahead and award said bid and not have to wait until April 11th, which further defers us being able to place the order.
Do I need to withdraw
Yes.
mine? I'll withdraw my motion.
Why does he have to withdraw?
Because it needs to say exactly like that. He
No,
didn't
it could be a
include-
second motion.
Yeah, he didn't include.
Second motion, you can do it separate.
But you can't have two motions on the table at once. It's
Oh,
been
I'm
seconded.
sorry, I thought y'all,
Yeah.
voted.
No, he's made a motion, it's been seconded.
I apologize. They voted, didn't they? Didn't you vote on, they voted on the budget?
Oh, yeah, I said thank you.
This is a second motion.
Yeah.
Okay. I was really
Okay.
confused.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize our county manager to act on our behalf to enter into contract negotiations as this is a timely issue at our Macon County Health Department.
All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you for clarifying that, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
Parks and Recreation.
Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr. Higdon and Mr. Weller, first I want to say thanks for sticking around. Would you gentlemen mind address the board with us up here? Mr. Crabtree, I'm sorry. Did I call him something else?
Thank you.
Well, look, I tell you, it's late, I'm sorry. Mr. Crabtree and Mr. Weller, I'm sorry. There's no feeling.
I missed Oscar too.
So we had a meeting this morning at the Parks and Rec facility. We had some nice discussion, and I just like, Mr. Crabtree, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Weller, feel free to, would you mind giving us an update?
Oh, sure, yeah. So, over the last couple of years, we've had a group of pickleball people that has been growing astronomically in our community. And they have been asking for dedicated courts to be built for them. We've gone through some different sites. We've had some sites approved and, money allotted for those. And now we're in discussion of maybe taking a step back and doing a more comprehensive plan for, the rec park, on the Georgia Road. So the old rec park, the Robert C. Carpenter building, and the fields surrounding it, including the pool, the tennis courts. Our tennis courts constantly are cracking because of the water and the soil in that area. We dedicated a space on one of the larger softball fields below the Smoky Mountain Center for Performing Arts for the pickleball courts. And now we're in that step back, we're discussing doing a more comprehensive plan, like what can we include if we're gonna do construction there. Maybe we find the best location in that park for those pickleball courts. Maybe it's not that spot, maybe it is that spot, but then also maybe including new tennis courts in that area or a better repair of our tennis courts so that we're not constantly throwing money at those courts. Yeah, and I just want to mention last week, I've had tours of all facilities around the county, but last week I kind of took a refresher course at the rec park itself, because there's been just some discussion about the building and the old concession stand that apparently hasn't been used as a concession stand in almost double-digit years. That building could be refurbished to make nicer bathrooms for pickleball courts, et cetera. So we looked at that building, we looked at other buildings. And what I will tell you, other than the Carpenter building, which is very nice,
fully renovated, functions well. What I discovered during that time of that tour last week, just as a retour, was that all of the buildings are 60s buildings, and they have outlived their usefulness. So to repurpose those buildings into other functions is just throwing good money after bad. So, you know, there's a lot of facilities there, there's a lot of area there, there's a lot of things being done here and there, but before we start throwing more money into other things, like you was talking about pickleball courts, and then tennis courts that every year have to have cracks repaired, and they have to be retopped every several years. We just keep throwing money at them on 50-year-old base that just keeps settling and moving. It just doesn't make sense. So the thought was that we are suggesting, and our liaisons can speak to it as well, suggesting that we do a comprehensive plan. We actually have a master plan done of that facility. I have to admit, I've been on the rec commission now for probably 2 years before Parker Meadows. And we saw Parker Meadows through, and Parker Meadows was the crowning jewel, the crown jewel, and then the rec park, unfortunately, because of that, kind of got forgotten. So, and we just kind of throw a little bit of repair money here and there. And all reason we're talking about all this now is I feel very much that aspects of that park, it's beyond repairs, and we're just throwing good money after bad. So. Or good, bad money after good, however you want to look at it. So that's the suggestion, to do a master plan and start that process.
And we won't, I don't want to jump in, that, it's disgraceful that tennis team has to go through when they bring visiting teams to play tennis. I mean, it's a, what is that, a utility? I mean, they keep their equipment in it, they got 2 little bitty bathrooms.
Very small bathrooms that are attached to the end of the maintenance shed.
Attached to the end of the maintenance shed.
Yeah, and to get to them as a spectator, if you have a grandparent that doesn't get around very well, coming to watch their grandchild play, or even an adult that needs assistance, it's out of the question. There is no bathroom facilities for them, so the whole park needs analysis. And it also really didn't make sense to me, the building over there by the baseball field that we were talking about repurposing for pickleball courts. The main sewer runs 125 feet from it, and it's on a septic system that nobody really knows fully where it is. So it's not even tied into sewer, it's right next to the creek, so there's a lot of things that need to be looked at just to make sure as we move forward, we're doing it in a positive direction and not backtracking.
I was alarmed too that we were not using the rec park anymore. We fought hard to get ball fields, Tim and there, he played sports. And then all of a sudden, we're just gonna throw a pickleball court middle one without any too much thought into it. But I'm at 100%, this is gonna connect with the greenway too, the rec park out there. So there's a potential there, our swimming pool's there. I'm 100% behind you guys, let's do this, whatever it takes, Josh.
Well, so I do want to, pickleball's kind of been, we've been kind of dangling the carrot in front of the, the horse's mouth per se, and they've, I think they're gonna see this as a stall tactic. And I feel like it's not a stall tactic, it's more or less a more comprehensive study that we can really, take a phased approach. Maybe we start off with pickleball, we add tennis in later, and then there's some really healthy discussion in that rec commission that Mr. Sherrill and I attended this morning. And some really good outside the box thinkers. But I think at this point in time, I'd like to make a motion that we allow our county manager to solicit maybe an RFP to find a contractor to do a comprehensive site study, site specific to the Robert Carpenter facility and community building. That's in the form of a motion.
A motion is second on the floor. Further discussion, now, we've already appropriated funds for pickleball court.
We have, that's what was gonna be my question. Are you suggesting that we put that on hold?
Yeah, so right now, Mr. Adams says, we don't have any tangible bids.
No, we don't.
So right now, we have budgeted.
We have money.
And that's why pickleball feels like this, again, could be a stall tactic. So I'm very careful to say it's not. I'd like to expedite this process. At this point in time, it shouldn't cost this county, any funds to, saying that.
And we're talking about design professionals, correct?
Design professional, I'm sorry.
And those funds for that would come from?
They're already in 23's budget, Parks and Rec budget.
Like 155.
For the pickleball
For the
courts, the
pickleball
one
courts,
fifty-five?
yes.
Okay, and, yeah, and I'm on board with Josh as well. We know how important pickleball is and how much it's grown. But at the same time, it would be absolutely beneficial for all of the taxpayers and the citizens of Macon County to do this thing right and know where the future growth is. And I think in long term, everybody's gonna be much happier, with this process.
We gotta have some restrooms over for tennis courts, I mean, that's just great.
So there's a lot of great discussions about recreation. There was a lot of input from the general public today. And actually, they thanked us for the conversations and the meeting that we had. And it was a great meeting.
We can put that together and get y'all something back to look at.
Where we at on that?
We have a motion and a second.
Y'all last name.
Need to call the question?
That's it.
I missed over, I'm not happy. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. We got it for one.
Okay, cool.
Raise your right hand. Raise your left hand. Jim, thank you, man. At my age, and at this time of night, it's okay to get loony. Next up is the consent agenda, including the addition of awarding the service pistol to,
Declaring the service, the surplus and allowing for the sale of it for $1. Commissioner.
make it out tonight. Any discussion? Entertain a motion?
To approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen.
That includes this one.
Yes. Appointments, Economic Development Commission, we have 3 seats available with 3 applications.
If you recall, there was one last month from Brett Rogers. We have since received one from Jonathan Hamlin, and we received one today from David Hubbs. So I believe what needs to happen is the reappointment of Mr. Rogers and Mr. Hubbs, and the appointment of Mr. Hamlin to fill the term, the seat that was held by Johnny Myerson.
When I talked with Tommy today, he said Johnny was interested in serving. Did y'all discuss any of these when you met with Tommy today? See, there's only 11 members, there's 12 members on that.
Who's the 3 that
So Hubbs, Rogers, and Hamilton.
Yes, those are the ones, yes, Tommy discussed those. Those are the 3 that Tommy had mentioned today.
The reappointment, all 3 are sitting members now.
No, Mr. Hamlin will be a new member.
Filling the term of John Meyer.
Did he resign?
And I just had to find his name.
Okay. And the 2 liaisons to the EDC, John and Josh.
I know all 3 of them. I think they're well respected. He's a strong pillar to the community. I would support nominating, if we have to do it independently, or making a motion we approve all 3 as one.
All at once.
Make a motion we approve Mr. Hamlin, Mr. Hubbs, and Mr. Rogers to the EDC board.
I second that.
Good job.
Have a motion and second. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, folks, I thought winds are down, but we do we have need for a closed session, Mr. Manager?
Yes.
Attorney-client privilege.
justified.
Negotiation, I think. The statute's 143-318.11E2.
We'll entertain a motion on the closed session.
Are we going back downstairs?
So moved, Chairman. We'll go back up.
All right, in favor, raise your signify.
We got a motion, we don't have a second.
So it's gonna be a problem.
All in favor, signify by raising your right hand.
How do you know?